Over the last 3 years, I have spent over $1 million running ads solely for tattoo artists and tattoo studios, generating over $8 million in bookings globally. I have run every type of ad under the sun for tattoo artists: photos, videos, traffic ads, engagement ads, lookalike audiences, retargeting audiences, Facebook, Google, Instagram. So it's very safe to say I've seen what works, what doesn't work, and the expensive mistakes most tattoo artists make when they start running ads. So in this 3-hour paid ads course, I'm going to teach you from top to bottom every single thing you need to know to run profitable ad campaigns as a tattoo artist. We'll cover when you should start running ads and when you should continue running ads, the difference between boosting posts and running ads in the Ads Manager, the difference between the Meta Business Suite, the Meta Business Manager, and the Ads Manager, and how to set up all three. A full walkthrough and setup of an Ads Manager to get you settled in and used to the layout, an in-depth breakdown of the paid ad strategies I use with tattoo artists, one short-term strategy and one long-term strategy, depending on your situation. Then I'll show you how to set up your short-term ad strategy from top to bottom. I'll also talk in depth on what makes a great creative or a great video for an ad and how to make them. We will then set up the long-term strategy from top to bottom. And finally, I'll show you how to read and track your results, optimize and improve your ad campaigns, and how to scale your ads properly when things are working, and honestly much more. So sit up, don't relax, and focus for 3 hours to learn a skill that can generate you clients for life. On that note, let's train. So first, when should you run ads as a tattoo artist? The problem I see is most tattoo artists start to run ads to compensate for a terrible social media profile or a lack of social media content strategy. The issue with that is then you are paying money for people to come and see a terrible profile. So what I would recommend is to only start running ads when you have a decent baseline of content and you have some sort of strategy and you are taking good quality photos of your work, which you know how to do now from watching this course. So what I would recommend is, if you're not running ads already and you're thinking about running them, I would spend the next 2 weeks implementing everything that you've learned content-wise from this course, and then come back to this part of the course and start to run paid ads. Now, if you already have a decently curated profile, you feel like you're making good content, you feel like if someone was to land on your page, they would be able to consume viral connection and conversion content and see good pieces of portfolio work, then I would recommend, if you need more bookings, you can start to consider running ads. But in an ideal world, you are not completely betting on paid ads to solve all of your problems, right? You're already bringing in a handful of clients organically through your content. Therefore, your paid ads is just putting fuel on the fire, as we say, which is where it's just putting a microscope onto you rather than putting a microscope onto a piece of shit. You know, if your content is terrible, your profile's not curated, etc., just remember that you're paying to get attention from paid ads. So you have to ask yourself, I'm sending this attention to a certain place. Am I proud and confident that the place I'm sending them to is going to make them want to book with me? As I've mentioned just before here, paid ads are a magnifying glass, right? They amplify things that are already working. They don't solve the problem itself. I'm just going to repeat this again as well, right? Think about it. If you put a magnifying glass onto a piece of shit, you are just zooming in on a piece of shit, right? If your profile is ugly, it's uninformative, and it has terrible photos and content of your work, your ads are not going to get you clients because they're not going to solve that problem, right? So you need to fix this first to have the highest return on your advertising investment. Okay, so highly recommend, take the 2 weeks, implement everything in this course, make your profile nice and pretty, make it informative as we've explained before. And then when you run paid ads, you're going to get so much better results. Also as well, the best ads are usually stemming from the content you're making. So also making content for 2 weeks and reading some of the analytics is going to allow you to have a good sense of what is going to make a good ad as well coming into running the ads. So that's out of the way. On that note, as mentioned before, I'm going to teach you 2 strategies, right? One short-term strategy and one long-term strategy. The first short-term temporary strategy is if you need clients ASAP, right? You're really struggling. You don't have, bookings for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, and you really need to get bookings ASAP. I'm going to show you a short-term strategy, which is counterintuitive to human psychology, as I'll explain throughout this course, but it's the best way for you to talk to as many people as possible soon, so you can at least get an extra 2-3 weeks of bookings to then have breathing room to go back and focus on the long-term strategy. And then the long-term strategy is a paid ad strategy I help artists implement long-term that they can run continuously without being too rushed on getting a client tomorrow. And it's going to generate a higher quality following, higher quality inquiries, and it just goes along the lines of human nature. But the most important thing is, for this long-term strategy, it takes patience. You need to not be in a huge rush to get clients immediately. If you really are in a huge rush and you do have money, secondly, to spend on paid ads, I would recommend doing the short-term strategy until you can find that breathing room, right? You're booked out 3-4 weeks. And then I would shift over to the long-term strategy, as it's going to do you wonders when it comes to the quality of inquiries you're getting from the ads long term. So follow the course and implement everything I'm teaching you. For the next 2 weeks, you can actually implement the short-term strategy if you want, just to get used to it, etc. It's a very easy strategy, especially if you need bookings ASAP. We can start with the short term. If you are not too much in a rush, I would still recommend watching it just to understand the psychology and the setup of everything. And then you'll see further into this course, there will be timestamps, but you can set up the long-term strategy straight away. If you're already booked for a month or so in advance and you just want a more predictable machine for getting inquiries, then definitely focus on the long-term strategy. Once again, the psychology of why will be explained throughout this video too. So moving forward now in this course, everything that we will be doing, editing, setting up, is going to be in the ads manager. This is the meta ads manager. This is different from boosting posts, which brings me to the first question I get asked all the time. What is the difference between boosting posts and running ads in the meta ads manager? I'll explain it through an analogy. Boosting posts is the amateur way of running ads, right? The reason that they make it so easy to boost posts is because then everyone does it, right? It's a click of a button, okay? And that's how Instagram makes a majority of its money from running ads, right? With people boosting posts and putting all of the control to Instagram, okay? If you think of a casino, right? A casino has winners and it has losers, right? Usually the majority of people are losers, okay? Because they're not really too sure what they're doing. They are gamblers, whatever. And then there's, a kind of a small minority of high rollers that know exactly what they're doing, that know how to play the game. They maybe count cards, whatever it is, but they usually get a better return on their money than the casino does, right? So you have to think of running ads on Facebook and Instagram like a casino, right? The majority of people are not going to get as good a results as they should be. And then there's a minority who know how to run ads really well that get a better outsized return for their money, okay? Because if you think about it this way, let's say that one client to you is worth $1,000, all right? And if you were to spend $300 to get that client, you would make $700, right? But that's what happens sometimes when you boost a post, whereas you spend more money to get that same client. But if you knew how to run ads really well and really profitably, you could get one of those $1,000 clients for $50 or $100, right? You would get results for 3 times cheaper, okay? The issue is Meta obviously wants you to spend the most amount of money possible to get the same result, as long as you're still happy. That's why a lot of the time people boost posts and they get just enough results to make it worthwhile to do again, and you go on that hamster wheel, right? Whereas when you're running ads profitably and setting them up profitably in a meta ads manager, you could set up a system where you're getting ridiculously outsized returns long term, where it's like you're spending $50 to get an $1,000 client or whatever. And obviously Meta would rather if you spent $300 to get that same client, because that extra $250 goes into their pocket, not yours, if that makes sense, okay? So you have to understand that boosting posts is Meta's casino way of losers, right? It doesn't mean you necessarily lose money. It just means that the results you get from boosting posts are nowhere near the results you get if you knew how to set up your app and run them properly as well, okay? The other thing as well, the issue with boosting posts is that you don't get significant data from boosting your posts. You don't get all of these little metrics that you'll see that'll show you like your link click-through rate, your unique link click-through rate, like the demographics, time of day, all that. You don't see all of these details when you're running ads, when you're boosting posts. And therefore you can't really learn from boosting posts, right? If you boost a post and it gets a lot of inquiries, that's great, but you don't know why it did. Therefore you can never improve moving forward, right? When you're running ads in the ads manager, if one ad doesn't do very well or one ad does do very well, you can see and you can pinpoint why that is. So then you can improve the quality of your setup of your ad moving on forward, right? So you only get better. Whereas with boosting posts, you're literally just gambling. If it works, great. If it doesn't, bad, right? And if it does work, you don't know why it worked. Therefore, you never learn anything, okay? So that is the other difference, is when you boost posts, it's all put into the control of Meta, and therefore you don't really learn from your success or failure when it comes to boosting posts. The other thing as well is you can't scale a boost post as well, right? So remember, when you're boosting a post, you're spending all of that money on one image or one photo or one reel, okay? When you're running ads in the ads manager, you could have a $50 budget and you could spend that $50 budget among 5 different videos. And then the $50 budget would eventually start spending on the video that's performing. So you would skip needing to spend a little bit on every single reel to figure out what works, right? So the main thing is, when you're boosting posts, all that money is going onto one image or one video. When you're running ads, you could run it to multiple videos and then see which one works, and then know which, post to boost or which creative to run more because of that, okay? All in all, they make boosting posts easy for a reason. You have to ask yourself that. And the second thing is, you don't learn anything from boosting posts. So you're really just gambling, okay, at the end of the day. Okay, that's a quick breakdown of what we're going to cover in this video and why we do what we do. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference between the Meta Business Manager, the Meta Business Suite, and the Meta Ads Manager, okay? And I'm going to show you how to set up each one individually. And then what we'll do after that is we'll start to run ads together. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to set up your Business Manager, your Meta Business Suite, and your Facebook Ads Manager. So they're all different, which I'll explain in a second. And there's a couple of ways you can set it up, one of which I'm going to show you now. Just to let you know as well, I'm probably going to disappear here, my face, because it disappears when I go on the Facebook Manager for some reason. But the first thing I'm going to show you then here is the difference between each thing, okay? So you'll hear about the Ads Manager, you'll hear about the Meta Business Suite, and you'll hear about the Facebook Business Manager. Okay, so the Business Manager, Meta Business Suite, and Ads Manager, they're all different, but they're all part of the same kind of infrastructure. Okay, so right now you're looking at the Business Manager. Okay, this is kind of like your corporate HQ. It's where you set up all of the admin stuff, the settings, you kind of get all of the really technical stuff set up, the foundations, connecting your Instagram account, creating your ad account, setting up your billing, getting your business verified, all of this stuff. This is like your corporate HQ. Okay, so this is like, think of it as the building. All right, then you've got your Meta Business Suite. And here, this is your Meta Business Suite, okay? So this is what you might be used to seeing if you've already set this up, but this is where you can, create a post or schedule a post on Facebook and Instagram, create a reel, a story, and also run ads and look at your inbox all in one place, etc. This is the Meta Business Suite. So this is kind of like the office floor or the floor for marketing in general, okay? And the way that you get here is, if you click on settings, you're in the Business Manager. Okay. And then if you click on home, you are on the Meta Business Suite, which we'll get into. All right. Then the last thing then is the Meta Ads Manager. Okay. So the Ads Manager is like the kind of room for running ads. It's like the ads department. Okay. So you've got the corporate HQ, which is the Business Manager, which is where you're setting up everything, everything from your Instagram account settings to your ad account settings to your billing, payments, business. It's like the whole thing. Okay. It's your HQ. And then your Meta Business Suite, where I go on home here, is like the marketing department where you can create a post, etc. And then the Ads Manager is specifically a room for the ads team, right, where you can run ads. So this is what you'll see for the Ads Manager, which you'll see it's actually quite clunky. And if you've never used this before, it's going to seem intimidating, but I promise you by the end of this course, you'll have a really clear understanding about how to use it, okay? But these are the 3 layouts of things you'll see, because what I see a lot of tattoo artists do is get confused, right? About where they are, what they should do, what's the difference between this and that. So just remember that one last time. This is your Meta Business Manager here. As you can see, like, it's all the kind of high level technical setup ad accounts, pages, apps, Instagram accounts, billing and settings, verified, security, etc. It's like the technical stuff setup. Then you've got your Meta Business Suite, which is this one here, as you'll see, which is where you can create posts, etc. And if you click settings, you're back to the Business Manager. And then you've got your Ads Manager, which is where you actually set up and run ads. Okay, so 3 different things. They're all part of the same infrastructure. As you can see from the business settings, you can actually go to the ad accounts there as well. right? As you can see, add accounts, and then you can go in, okay, which we'll get into. So the first thing you're going to do, if you have already ran ads before and you've set this up, you can kind of skip into the video. You'll see timestamps there somewhere. If you haven't, what you're going to need to do is set up a business manager, okay? So a Facebook business manager. And the way that you do that is, number one, you have to have a Facebook profile, okay? Like a personal profile, because that is how it verifies you to being a real person. Okay, so first of all, if you don't have a Facebook profile, you're going to unfortunately have to set that up. Most of you, I think 99% of you will, but if you don't, just realize you have to set that up in order to create this. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to business.facebook.com and you're going to search that. And what you're going to get to is this, okay? And this is where you're going to set up your business manager. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to log in with your Facebook account, okay? And then on the next page, it's going to, if you've never done this before, ask you to create a business manager. It's going to be a button here. I unfortunately can't access it because I already have one, but it's going to ask you create a profile here. You're going to click it, and then it's going to ask you for the business manager name and the business manager details. What I'll do is I'll put a screenshot on the screen here so you can see what it's going to look like. Then what you're going to do is you're going to create that, and what you're going to be brought to is something very similar to this, which is the business manager. Okay, so in order for you to run ads properly, you have to set up a couple of things before. So number one is you actually need to create an ad account. Okay, so when you go on here, if it's your first time here, you're not actually going to see any accounts here. You can see I have 4 ad accounts because I've been running ads for a while, but this is going to be empty and it's just going to be like ad here. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to create an ad account. So you're going to click create account. You're going to put the name in. So let's say it's your name is John Tattoo ad account. Okay, and you could put like 2026 so you know that it's from now. All right, then you're going to put in the time zone of where you want to see the results and the currency that you use. Okay, so if I actually just do this here, test account, and time zone Dublin, US dollars, that's fine. This is for my business, okay? And then you're just going to say I agree, and you're going to create the account. I'm not going to create it now because I already have mine, but then you're going to be able to see it here. And you're going to be able to open in the ads manager. Now, what you also want to do is you want to assign yourself access, okay? So what you're going to do is go to people. You're going to make sure that you're here as an admin, okay? As you can see, this is me, this is my email. I've got full control and I'm active, all right? What I would recommend as well is actually, just to be super safe, invite yourself from another email you have, if you have another one, as an admin too. Okay, so I'll do that now just to show you. So I'm going to invite my email for C23 Labs. I'm going to give myself full control of everything. And then I'm going to select all the stuff that I want control of. So I want control to this page, full control. I want control to my ad account that I just made, okay? And my Instagram account. Sorry, if I go back, manage ad accounts, full control. Make sure you click on full control. If it says missing permissions, you just need to click here. And then I'm going to go next, review the invitation, and I'm going to invite myself. Okay, so if you don't see your most used email there, I would just invite yourself as an admin. What's going to happen then is, if you ever get kicked out for whatever reason, I'm just going to send myself this text here. If you're going to get kicked out for whatever reason, at least you have a backup way to log in to your profile. Okay, so once you've done that, you make sure that you're added as an admin. What you're going to do as well now is make sure that your Facebook page is connected if you are using Facebook to run ads. Most of you watching this probably aren't, but sometimes as well, Facebook, the ads manager won't allow you to run ads unless you have a Facebook page, and you can just make a page and then deselect it when you're running the ad in terms of where you want to run the ad to. You can just say, hey, I have this Facebook page, but I only want to run this ad to Instagram. So if you don't have a Facebook page and it's asking you to create one later in the when you're setting this up, just go to add. If you already have one, you can say add an existing Facebook page, and you'll easily be able to search it and add it there. And then if you don't, you can just create a Facebook page really quickly, then come back here and continue on. All right. So once you've done that, you're now going to go to Instagram accounts here on the left. Remember, we're in the business manager here. We're setting up all the techie admin stuff, and you're going to make sure that your Instagram account is connected. So you can see mine is connected. I've got full control, etc. And then what you want to do is, just for example, yours isn't there. You just click add. You're then going to log in right? Add Instagram account. It's going to ask you to log in. It's going to send you a code. It's going to do all this. And then you're going to see it's attached there. All right. Now, one last final thing you need to do then before we get started on setting up your ads manager, running you through that and building your first ad is you need to connect your Instagram account and you as a person to the ad account. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into your Instagram account here. You're going to click connect assets. Okay. And then you're going to click other business assets and you're going to select the ad account that you just made. Okay. So I'll just select all four just to be sure, but you're going to have one here. You're just going to select it and you're going to add yourself. So now your Instagram is a connected asset to the ads manager, meaning we are able to run ads on your Instagram account through the ads manager. All right. If you don't do this, you'll set up an ad, your Instagram won't show up as an option and you'll be super confused. This is what you need to do. If that's happening to you, you go back into the business manager, right? You go to Instagram accounts and you just do that really quickly. Then you also want to do the same for your person. So if you go back to the ad accounts, and then you want to make sure that if you're here as you're here as an admin, full control. If you're not, you just assign people. Okay, you select yourself, give yourself full control, and then assign. Okay, that's really important to do because if you don't do that, you're going to be very confused as to why you can't run ads on your own Instagram or why you can't access certain things. Okay, so now that you've done all of this, once again as well, I know I'm rushing through this or this is going very fast. The main thing is, there are plenty and plenty of videos on how to set this up on YouTube. If you just do some research, I've given you everything you need, basically the minimum. This video, I really want to just focus on actually building and creating an ad. So if you are having trouble with this, I highly recommend you go watch other long form videos. Just look up how to set up a Facebook business manager, how to set up a Facebook ads manager, etc. But yeah, you need to do all of this before you run ads. Okay. Once again, this is not boosting posts. This is running ads in a very technical layout. Okay. Where you can do a lot more and you can see a lot more results and you can test a lot more and you'll just get better results because you can set it up in a better way from all the features that they have. Okay. So in the next video, then what we're going to talk about is setting up your ads manager and walking you through the ads manager so you get accustomed to the layout, what each metric means. And then what we'll do after that is talk about what type of ads you can run, what type of setups you can run, long term and short term, as I've mentioned before, and then we'll set up your first ad. Another thing I forgot to mention in the other video just before this is in order for you to run ads on Instagram and set this all up, your Instagram needs to be a professional account. So I'll put a quick screen recording of how to do that on the screen here, but just make sure that your Instagram is set to a professional account. Okay. The second thing as well, I didn't mention is a couple of security things and setups you can do to really give yourself a head start in your business manager. So what you're going to do is go over to Security Center. And you're just going to make sure that two-factor authentication is required for everyone. That means that if someone tries to log into your business manager, it has to manually send you a code, etc., every time, because there are a lot of hackers out there. So I highly recommend you do this. And then the second thing as well is if you go to the ad account settings, if you go to billings and payments, you can actually add your card here as a payment method that you can then attach to your ad account so that your ad is ready to run as well and your card is attached, etc. Because that's another issue as well. Sometimes is you set up an ad, you haven't added your card, and then it becomes a whole thing. Okay, so two things: set up two-factor authentication and add your payment method here, as you can see. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the actual ads manager in itself. And we're going to navigate through it. I'm going to explain every little thing to you that you need to understand, right? Not everything that is possible to understand, because you don't need to be the best marketer in the world. You just need to be good enough and better than all of your competitors. But I'm going to run through every single thing you should pay attention to, what a campaign, ad set, and ad means, what each metric means, how to edit this, how to set up audiences, etc. Okay, so just remember, this is where you actually run the ad, right? This is kind of like the cockpit of the plane. Okay, all the buttons, all the setup. It looks super fancy. It looks super intimidating. And that is for a good reason, right? Meta doesn't want you to be a master at this. They want you to boost posts because it's easier and they make more money, etc. Okay, but it's not as intimidating and hard as it looks. Okay, so for example, we've got the layout here. So first of all, each thing here is a campaign. Okay, this is like an ad that you are running, or like a a campaign setup that you're running. I'll explain the difference between each one. You can say I have a lot because I've been running ads for a while, but for you, you're probably going to have nothing here. Okay. And then once you create a campaign, which we'll get into in a second, you're going to have them here. All right. Then within each campaign, you've got ad sets and then you've got ads. Okay. So the main difference between a campaign, ad set, and ad is the campaign. Once again, you can see that it looks like folders, right? If you think of old school folders in a in a cupboard, etc., in an FBI office, they've got folders and subfolders and subfolders. So this is the main folder. This subfolder is within this folder, and these subfolders are within this one. Okay, so this is the main one. If you were to flick through this one, you'd see this, and then if you were to flick through this, you'd see this. Okay, and you can actually see it. It's shaped like a folder to understand. So every ad set is within a campaign, and every ad is within an ad set. All right. So the difference between a campaign, an ad set, and an ad is the campaign is basically the goal, right? We're going on, like, think of a war, a campaign. We're going on a goal. We have a goal. We're going to invade this country, for example. That is your campaign. So what is our goal of running this ad? Okay. Then your ad set is, okay, well, where are we campaigning to? Where are we going? What are we trying to invade? So for us, it's like, for example, what type of person and what city and what demographic, etc., are we trying to hit this goal of? So if our goal is to get messages on our Instagram, that would be the campaign, then our ad set would be the set of ads targeting a certain person. Okay, so I want to get DMs from someone in New York within a 10-mile radius who's a male, for example. Okay, and then the ads itself is, okay, well, what am I showing that person to get my goal, right? So this is, what is the goal? Who is the goal for? What are we showing them to hit that goal, right? So your ad is actually the visual ad itself. Okay, how does it look? What is the text? What is the video? What happens when they click on the ad, etc. So if you understand now, the campaign is what our actual goal is, because there's many goals. For example, if I click create here, you've got all of these different types of campaigns: awareness, traffic, engagement, leads, ad promotion, sales. So one by one, awareness is the goal, or the campaign is to show your ads to people who are most likely to remember them. As you can see here, what this is really is just a billboard ad. Okay, not very good, but that's what an awareness campaign is. It would be just like an image. There wouldn't be much people could do. They could maybe like and comment on it, but there wouldn't be a next step, and it would just be for visual awareness, hence the name. Okay, then traffic is for getting more traffic, or in marketing terms, like getting more people, getting more attention and people to go to a specific destination, right? When you get traffic on your website, it means you get website visitors. Okay, so this would be, as you can see here, send people to a destination like your website, app, Instagram profile, or event. So this is where you could send people to visit your profile, you could send people to your website, you could send people to any link, etc. That's a traffic ad. Okay, and then engagement is to get more engagement. As you can see by the icon and the name, it's to get more messages, right? So it could be WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Instagram. Okay, it could be calls. It's to get people conversing with you. All right. Then leads is to actually generate leads. In marketing terms, that's kind of like getting people's names, emails, and phone numbers. Okay, so this is where you could have a form that they fill out, or they go to a website where they fill out a form, etc. Then if you're selling an app, promoting your app, and then if you're selling a physical e-commerce product, for example, that's sales. So let's say you're running an ad sending people to buy a t-shirt. You would set up a sales campaign because you want to track how many sales you got. Okay, the main two we're going to focus on as an artist is traffic and engagement, which we'll get into in depth later in this course on the difference and why we use each one. Okay, but there's an example of all of your goals, right? Your campaigns, you could do all of these things. Then your ad set is actually where you edit the targeting and stuff like that. So if I click on this ad set, ignore the chaos on the left here, just look what I'm showing you here. So you can see here, this is, if I go down, we're right now in this ad set. Okay, under this huge campaign. As you can see, I've got loads of these different ad sets because I want to target North America, Europe. This is specifically for my ad, but in this ad set, okay, hence the icon as well. Okay, this is the campaign icon. This is an ad set icon. This is an ad icon. If you ever lost, all right. But you can see here, what is my goal? Where is it going to? What's my budget? What's my location? Like, where am I trying to run this to? So Ireland, what's my age, gender, demographic, and then any like detailed targeting. As you can see here, I've attached tattoo artist or tattoo and body artist, etc. But that's our goal. And then placements, where do I want this ad to actually be running? Where do I want it to be placed? Instagram feeds, stories, reels, Facebook stories, Instagram Explorer. Okay, this is all of the stuff you set up in your ad set. Okay, now I know what the goal is. I want to get messages, for example. Where and who do I want this goal for? Okay, and then you've got your ad, as you can see here by the icon, and this is where you can set up your actual ad itself as well. So if I added a video here, or what I'll do is I'll actually just find an ad I've already set up. If I go here, for example, you can see there's the video. I've got the text. I can see what the message button says. I can also see what what happens when they click that button. So I can see that, oh, okay, when they click on that button, they're going to see this and they're going to click on one. This is the ad itself, right? This is visually what they're seeing. All right. So that is a quick crash course on what a campaign is, an ad set, and an ad is. Okay. This is also one of the things I see most tattoo artists get confused. All right. It's all part of one. Your campaign is just like when you say, I'm going to run an ad, like that's you're doing is a campaign. Okay, I want to run an ad to get more messages. Campaign. I want to run it in New York in a 10-mile radius, specifically to women between the age of 25 and 40. That's your ad set. Okay, because it's your set of ads that are running to a specific person. And then the type of ads is like, okay, I'm going to try this video, this video, this video, and this video, and it's going to have this caption. That's your ad. Okay. So the other thing you can see here as well is you've got metrics, right? So you can see here you've got if I actually do. Let me just show you October, for example. So you can see on this ad, I spent $3,000. I got, let me show you here. On this ad, we just go to the right here. I spent $3,700. I got 1,251,000 views on it. Impressions means views. The cost, the CPM, so the cost per 1,000 people to see that was €3. 16,000 people visited my profile, right? That was the ad that I set up. This was my cost per click. So how much did I have to spend for one person to click on the ad? Okay. This is the percentage of people who saw the ads who clicked through. So 1.31. All right. So out of every 100 people, 1.31 people clicked on it. Okay. Which by the way is quite low, etc. So these are your metrics, okay? And you'll get introduced to these as we start running an ad. I'll introduce you to the main metrics you want to be paying attention to and what the KPIs are. KPI meaning key performance indicator. So like what number should each thing be? And if it's above that, it's great. If it's below that, it's not. For example, I want my click-through rate to be at least 1.5%. So here I'm going to take a look at how I could improve my click-through rate. Okay, it's below KPI. The key performance indicator is 1.5%. I'm just getting you accustomed to the jargon, okay? Because I will zone out sometimes and just say KPI, CPM, all this stuff. So at least you have a kind of an index right now, right? So then you've got your columns here, and you can see certain metrics depending on what you're looking for. So right now I'm looking at performance and clicks. I want to see the general performance of it and all the metrics on like the clicks itself. Okay, how many people saw it, how many people clicked on, how many people visited my profile. But I could also look at engagement. So I could also see, okay, well, how many post interactions did I get? How many comments did I get? How many saves did I get? Okay, how many new followers did I get? Okay, from this ad, as you can see. All right, so you can see different things based on these columns, as you can see here. Okay, and what we're mainly going to be looking at is engagement and performance and clicks as well. Okay, so that's where you can find that. Because you might be thinking, oh, I don't see any of this. It's probably because you're only on performance, which is the default setting that it's on or view that it's on. Okay, so then you want to go to performance and clicks or engagement, etc., which we'll get into later in the course. Okay, so now you understand what a campaign, an ad set, and an ad is. You also understand what each where you can see each metric. I'll explain in depth what each metric means and why it matters as we run an ad. Okay, and then the last thing I want to show you as well then is, once again, you can set up your billing and payments here. So you can set up your card here. If you haven't done that already, I'll just click on that just to show you one more time. As you can see, okay, you can add your payment method here. All right. And then if I go back here now, the last thing as well is this is where you can also set up your custom audiences. Okay. So a custom audience, as you can see here on the left, audiences, is where you can create an audience that has a custom kind of, what would the word be? There are certain markers to the audience for it to be in that audience. For example, if I made a custom audience of Instagram followers, the only people in that audience would be people who follow me on Instagram, right? They have to be within that threshold. So the main thing is you can create custom audiences for many reasons, one of which also, the main one, which I'm going to show you, is to run an ad specifically to people who already follow you, who already know who you are, who already watched a certain amount of videos, etc. This is very valuable because a lot of you have a lot of followers, but you don't really have a system right now. Definitely before this course, you haven't, before the conversion mechanisms video, etc., where you can consistently get your existing viewers and followers to reach out to you, okay? And what you can run is a retargeting ad, which is an ad that's only running to those people at a very low budget. So you're consistently reminding your followers through the retargeting ad that you're taking bookings, okay? So what you can do is you can come to audience. I'm going to create one audience with you in this course. There's a loads of other ones you can get in the full course if you want to get really fancy with this. One thing I will mention again is, remember guys, you do not have to be the best in the world at running ads. You don't even have to be the top 1,000,000 at running ads, okay? All you have to do is be good enough to run an ad that performs well enough so that you have consistent bookings, okay? Because your time is not best served going from a 5 out of 10 marketer or paid advertiser to a 10 out of 10. It's better to go from a 5 out of 10 tattoo artist to a 10 out of 10 artist, okay? So remember, there's all these fancy things you can do, and you hear about it all the time: website visitors, lookalike audiences, retargeting ads, like all these different types of creative you can do, scaling, optimizing, testing 10. Fuck that, all that shit off, okay? You don't need to do all of that. If this was your full-time job, maybe. All you need to do is get an ad that's easy to set up, that performs consistently, so that you can focus your attention on talking to clients, booking them in, and improving your art and improving your brand, okay? Just remember that too, because you'll hear a lot of advice. Okay, well, Oshin says all this, but it seems too simple. All these other people are saying do this and that. You don't need to do any of that anymore, okay? The creative is everything, as I've mentioned before with the Andromeda update. What you just need to do now is be able to set up a consistent ad. Once again, I've been doing this for years, so what I'm showing you now is the best way to set it up in this moment. So you're skipping all of the trial and error anyway. I just really want you guys to understand that don't become a perfectionist. Don't think that because this is an easy setup, it's not the best for you. I promise you it is. And the reason it's also the best is because it's easy, so that you can consistently edit it, improve it, but focus your attention on what really matters, which is your art and your visual brand, okay? So what you're going to do here is you're going to create an audience, custom audience, okay? So the first audience we're going to create with you is a retargeting audience, so which is an audience retargeting people who've already engaged with you, specifically in this video on Instagram. So what we're going to do is we're going to go create a custom audience source. Your source is going to be Instagram account here. You're then going to click next. You're going to make sure your Instagram account is selected, okay? If it doesn't show up here, what it means is you didn't do the setup in the previous video where you attached your Instagram account as an asset to your ad account, okay? Everyone who engaged with this professional account, okay, as you can see, you've got options here. Everyone who started following, who engaged, who visited this profile. I like to do everyone who engaged, because you can have a lot of people that maybe liked a reel of yours, or one went viral and they liked, they commented, they saved, but they didn't follow. This ad will then still hit those people who've clearly shown interest in your work, but that didn't follow, okay? And what this ad can do as well is actually incentivize a lot of those people to end up following you as well, okay? So for your retargeting ad, I recommend people who engage with this professional account. Once again, you only want to start running this as an ad when you have over 50,000 accounts reached in the last 30 days. Once again, you can see how to do that on the screen here. Okay, so then what you're going to do after that, when you do have 50,000 accounts reached in the last 30 days, which means your content is performing, you're growing, etc., is you're going to click people who engage with this professional account in the last 365 days. The reason 365 is you can't do more than that. That's the maximum, okay? Then you're going to call this, for example, Oshin retargeting audience, okay? And then you could even do a bracket Instagram engagers, so people who've engaged with my Instagram, and then you're going to create that audience. I'm not going to create it because I have a gazillion of them already, but then what you'll see is you'll see that it says like a generating audience, and then it will say audience is ready. So for example, for me, where's my Instagram audience? Yeah, Instagram engagers, October 2025. You can see it's ready, and yeah, it's ready to go and be used. Okay, then you can then use that when you're setting up an ad campaign, which we'll get into, okay? So if we go back now you understand the ads manager, okay, as well as you need to. These here are your campaigns, okay? When you click on one, you can see the ad sets under it and the ads under the ad set, okay? The ad set is where you select the trafficking, the campaigns where you select the goal, and the ad itself is where you actually set up what that person is going to see on the other side, okay? So now in the next video, first I'm going to talk about the different campaigns we can make And the short-term strategy I recommend for tattoo artists who really need bookings soon, and the long-term strategy for tattoo artists who are not too rushed and want to set up a sustainable ad strategy that works long-term with slower results but better results. Okay, so I'm going to explain that now. Then in the video after that, I'm going to actually set up your first ad with. Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the strategies that I use in paid advertising. First of all, the short-term strategy that you can use if you really need clients. And secondly, but most importantly, the long-term strategy on how you can run ads for a long period of time and get consistent results with it at a much higher quality as well, which I'll explain. So I'm going to be looking down a lot in this video. The reason is I'm drawing on my iPad, as you'll start to see on the screen here. And what I'm going to start with, first of all, is an index of some of the main words I'm going to use throughout this paid ads course that you really need to understand, so that when I do explain the two strategies, short-term and long-term, you understand what I'm referencing as well, if I go off on a bit of a tangent in terms of the technical words I'm using. Okay, so as you can see here, the index, she's just going to change this to green. Okay, so the index first on the index is the type of audiences that you can have. Okay, so you've got cold audiences and you've got warm. What that means is a cold audience is an audience of strangers, right? They're cold, they don't know who you are yet. Okay, and a warm audience is an audience of people who are warm, so people who know who you are, so they've seen something, they follow you, they've engaged with something, etc. Okay, so that's the first part of the index. Okay, then we've got the three types of targeting, the types of targeting you can do in your ads, right? The types of groups of people that you can actually run an ad to. Okay, so first you've got open targeting, which is basically targeting that's open to everyone. So for example, if you lived in New York, if you put a 10-mile radius around where you are in New York and you changed nothing else, so you didn't target specifically women or a certain age group or a certain interest like museums, Rolex, high income earners, whatever, that is open targeting. It's completely open to everyone. Okay, so that is what open targeting means. And usually open targeting always open targeting is a cold audience. Okay, it's a cold audience, right? Because it's open to everyone and you're running it to people who don't really know who you are yet, right? Hence the word open. Okay, then you've got a retargeting audience. So a retargeting audience is an audience of people who already know who you are. So this is a warm audience. The reason it's called a retargeting audience is because if you're running an ad to these people who already know who you are, for example, your Instagram followers or people who have engaged or watched a certain amount of your videos, you are retargeting them, right? So your content has already targeted them previously in the past. And now what you're doing when you're running an ad to these people is you are retargeting them, right? You're reminding them that you exist. Okay, so that is a warm audience. Okay, and then a lookalike audience. Okay, so LAA, as you can see here, the other thing you need to understand is when I say OT, it's open targeting, RT is retargeting, and LAA is lookalike targeting. So lookalike targeting is where you create an audience of people who are very similar in behavior or look a lot alike people who already follow you or engage with you, right? So it could be a lookalike audience of your retargeting audience, right? What that means is you can basically on Facebook create an audience that is 1%, so as close as possible, 1% as similar to the behaviors online of these people. Okay, your retargeting audience, and that is what's called a lookalike audience. So you'll see a lot of people say like, hey, you should run an ad to a lookalike audience. It's basically saying, hey, make this audience, it's going to be people who are cold, so don't know who you are, but are the most similar in behavior to people who do know who you are. Therefore, it's probably going to get you better results. Now, we're not actually going to use lookalike targeting at all in this course. And we would have maybe a couple of months ago. The reason we're not is what's due to what's called the Andromeda update, which is an update with Meta's AI algorithm, which basically neglects the function of lookalike audience completely. The reason is, back in the day, you used to, in order to be a savvy marketer or a savvy advertiser, you used to have to be really good at testing different targeting. So you could have interest targeting, which is like you target people's interests. So like, let's say they like museums, or they like visual arts, or they've shown an interest in tattoos before, or you're trying to attract entrepreneurs. So you put in Rolex or car or Porsche, whatever. That is like certain types of very technical targeting. And the way that you would improve your ads over time is you test like, okay, I'm going to run an ad to Rolex people who are interested in Rolex, people who are interested in tattoos, museums. And okay, every time I run an ad to people who like museums and tattoos, they both work. So now I'm going to run an ad to both of them together. So people who like museums and tattoos. The issue is that you don't need to do any of that anymore because of the Andromeda update, which basically explains that the AI algorithm in Meta is so good at finding the right people now because of the trillions of data points it has, right? That all this like savvy targeting and stuff and setups and lookalikes, and it doesn't matter anymore. What matters now is the quality of your creative, or in other words, your video, your ad that you're running. Okay. So now it's actually easier to set up an ad in terms of the technicalities. What you have to put a lot more effort into now is actually creating a variety of creatives or ads that are really high quality, because the AI algorithm is so good that the better your actual visual ad is, the easier it's going to find the right people. Okay. So either way, I wanted to just explain what lookalike targeting is, because I know you guys have probably heard that a lot, but we're actually not going to use that at all. The only two pieces of targeting we're going to use is completely open, right? It's completely open. The AI is going to just find those people, because what we're going to spend all of our attention on is actually the quality of our ad. Okay. And then retargeting, which is where we're going to run an ad to people who already 100% know we exist, because they are a very warm audience and therefore they are much closer to buying. If you remember the funnel, they're much closer to buying than complete strangers, hence the long-term strategy. Okay. So the next piece on the index is the types of campaigns you can run. So you've probably seen this already in this video already, in this course already, but there's two types of campaigns you can make. So a campaign is the type of ad you're running, right? The goal of the ad. So the two we're going to use is a traffic campaign, which is basically when you're trying to send traffic to a certain place, right? Traffic in terms of, in digital terms, means like attention or like flow. Okay. Like if you think of traffic and cars, it's like they're all going a certain way. So we're trying to send traffic to our Instagram profile, for example. Okay. The other one then is engagement. We're trying to generate engagement with more people. So in tattoo terms, or in these advertising terms, it will be getting more DMs. Okay. So those are the two types of campaigns we're going to run: a traffic campaign and an engagement campaign. Traffic just really means profile visits. Okay. I'm going to write that here as well. And then engagement just means more DMs. Okay. So you'll hear me use traffic and engagement a lot too. Then there's actual technical terms in terms of metrics or numbers that are very, very important to track as well. Okay. So the first one, the most important, is CPA, which is your cost per acquisition. Acquisition meaning acquiring a customer. So what that really means is how much are you spending to get one customer? For example, let's say you spent $50 today and you booked one client. Your CPA, your cost per acquisition, would be $50. Okay. So that is how much it costs to get one client. Okay. That's your cost per acquisition. Then you've got your frequency, which in advertising terms, you'll see the metric on the ads manager, which I'll show you, but it really means how often has someone on average seen this ad. So for example, if your frequency is 3, it means that on average, the average person in that radius that you're targeting, right, the place that you're running the ads, has seen your ad 3 times. Okay. So the higher your frequency is, the worse, right? Because if your frequency is super high, it means that your ad is being seen so many times and people are going to start getting sick of it. Okay. So that's the frequency. So the lower the frequency, the better. But we'll get into why that matters later in this video as well. Okay. Then you've got your cost per profile visit. Okay. So when we're running a traffic ad, if you remember, a traffic ad is to get profile visits. So to get people to look at your profile. Your cost per profile visit, or your CPPV, as it will say in some places, is how much are you spending to get one person to look at your profile, right? So that's what that means. And then your cost per lead, or your CPL, or your cost per message, or your cost per conversion, whatever, it's all the same, is how much are you spending to get one lead or inquiry, or in our terms, a DM. Okay. So that is what those mean as well. All right. And obviously, the lower these are, the better. Okay. Because if your cost per profile visit is 10 cents, then every dollar you spend, you're getting 10 people on your profile. Amazing. Okay. If your cost per lead is $5, it means that every $5 you spend, you're getting a DM, right? So the lower they are, the better. Okay. Then the other thing we're going to talk about a lot is scale. So what this means is when you're scaling an ad, all it means is you are incrementally spending more money on the ad because it's doing so well, right? So if I have an ad that's running really well and I want to scale it, that would mean, like, let's say the budget is $20 and I want to scale it. If I raise the budget to $30 or $40 a day, I'm scaling that ad, right? Because it's working, because one of these, whatever the ad is performing really well, right? The results are really low. Okay. And continuing on, then we've got duplicate. So what duplicate means is when I'm running an ad, let's say I have a group of ads, and ad set I have 3 ads, and they're all doing really, really well, and I want to scale that ad. You never want to touch a performing ad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that ad set. So basically I'm going to copy paste a new one. I'm going to launch it again at the higher budget, and then I'm going to turn the other one off. So when I say duplicate, it really just means like, hey, I want to make changes on this ad that's performing. I want to add more budget. I want to try different videos, whatever. We never touch an ad that's working because we don't want to fuck it up. So what we do is we duplicate it or we copy paste it. So you've got the same thing twice. And then we make the changes on the new one and we launch the new one, right? Hence the word duplicate. We're just duplicating it, okay? And then when I say test, it's like when we're testing ads. So for example, if we run an ad and we have 5 different ads running, so ad 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm testing all 5 of those ads against each other. And then let's say ad 1 and ad 2 perform really well. I'm going to turn off ad 3, 4, and 5, okay? And my test is done. I've got my winners, ad 1 and 2. And then I could scale ad 1 and 2, hence duplicating it and then raising the budget, right? So that's how all of those words come in together, okay? And that is just the initial introduction to the index, okay? So you've got cold audience, which is strangers, warm, which is people who know who you are, open targeting, open to everyone in that radius, retargeting, only showing to people who know who you are, lookalike, showing to people who are the most similar in behavior to your retargeting audience, but who are strangers. Traffic is sending people to your profile. Engagement is getting more DMs. Cost per acquisition is how much are you spending to acquire a client, hence the word acquisition. Frequency is how frequent are people seeing your ad, right? And then cost per profile visit, how much are you spending to get one person to visit your profile? Cost per lead, how much are you spending to get one lead or one message or one conversion, right? And then scale, increasing the budget on your ad because it's working. Duplicate, I want to make some changes. I'm going to copy paste the ad and make the changes there. Test, I'm running 5 ads. I'm going to test which one works, and then I'm going to turn off the ones that don't. Okay, so that's your index. Now, if we go over to then the short-term strategy, the short-term strategy is basically short-term because it's skipping a lot of the natural point of a funnel. If you think of a funnel, as I've mentioned before, right? In fact, I actually have I have another page here. If you think of a funnel, right? You've got the cold audience, which is people here, and then you've got people who pay at the bottom, right? As we've mentioned before, at the very, very start of this course, you want people to go through each stage of the funnel. So you've got your top of funnel, middle, and bottom, right? So they come in, they evaluate you, they engage with you, they evaluate a good opinion of you, then they start talking to you, and it's a process, right? The issue is with the short-term strategy, you're trying to bring people from a stranger, so a cold person, straight to a DM, okay? The reason that I recommend doing this short-term is because you're going to get a lot more messages, right? You're not going to profile visit, you're not waiting for people to make, follow your profile and then reach out naturally. You're sending people directly to your DMs. What's going to happen is you're going to get a lot more DMs. Most of them are not going to be that serious, but you're going to naturally talk to more people, hence book more people in, right? That's why it's the short-term strategy. Highly don't recommend this long-term because you're not going to have high quality inquiries all the time. But if you really need clients, it's best to just skip the steps, get as many DMs as you can. And then let's say you get 10 DMs, one of them is going to be serious and then you book them in, right? But you're going to have to talk to 9 unserious people. But if you really, really need clients, you have the time to do this. Hence why it's a short-term strategy, right? So the short-term is if you were to build a cold ad, right? Remember, it's an ad to strangers and it's going to go, it's an engagement ad. So it's going to go straight to your DMs, right? So it's going to be an open targeting audience that is going to be running. So for example, if I was in New York, it's going to be 10 miles around me in New York, completely open to every age, gender, interest, etc. Okay. Then the test is I'm going to have 5 ads that are running, right? I'm going to run this at a budget of, let's say you're running at a budget of $20, $30, whatever. Okay. Then after a week, so you spend $140 or $200, you're going to see, okay, ad 1 is getting me a cost per lead of $5, right? And ad 3 is getting me a cost per lead of $5, and the rest are terrible, right? They're plus 10 or whatever. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off ad 4, ad 5, and ad 2. And now I have this ad running with the 2 best performers. Okay. And then what you could do is you could duplicate this ad set, right? This open targeting ad set. You could do it again. And then you could just have ad 1 and ad 3. And now what you could do then is have this budget at $30. So you've raised the budget, and then if it starts performing, so your cost per lead here is still $5, you could just turn off this original one at the start, and now you have this one, right? And that's what I mean by testing and duplicating. Okay, so if I just go back, so this isn't so messy. I'm also not very good at Procreate, as you can see. Okay, but that is an example of a cold engagement DM ad, which is a short-term strategy, right? It's short-term because you're skipping a lot of trust-building steps. Okay, the real way that I want you to run ads long-term is this long-term strategy where you build 2 ad campaigns. Okay, so the first one is you have a cold ad, but it's a traffic ad. Okay, so you're running ads to people visiting your profile. Okay, once again, if you are okay for bookings, you have bookings for 3 weeks, a month, whatever, I highly recommend, if you want to run ads, doing it this way, because you're going to get such better quality clients and messages over time, which I'll explain in a second. But what you're going to do is you're going to run a cold ad, which is traffic. So we're trying to generate profile visits. We're going to run it to an open targeting audience, to an audience of strangers, which is broad. Okay, 10 miles around me in New York, for example. We're going to do the same thing again at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to see what our cost per profile visit is, right? If you remember the index, how much are we spending to get one visit on our profile, right? Then let's say ad 1 has a cost per profile visit of $1.20, and so does ad 2, $1.20, and then the rest are terrible. We're going to turn them off. Now we have a great ad. We have 2 great ads running, and then what we could do is we could duplicate this. Okay, so we could copy paste this, and then we could raise the budget. Let's say this budget is $25. We can raise this budget to 35 or 45, etc., which I'll get into in a second. Then the second ad we have running is a warm ad. So the retargeting audience, if you remember, people who already know who you are, and this is going to the DMs, right? So it's warm, it's engagement, and this is going to the DMs. The reason is because these people have then, for example, if I'm a stranger, I see your ad, your open targeting ad, I visit your profile from that ad, then I consume your content, I follow you, and then 3 weeks later, I see your retargeting ad, right? Then that retargeting ad goes straight to your DMs. The quality of the conversation you're going to have with me after going through all those stages, compared to the short-term strategy of someone seeing one ad and then 30 seconds later you trying to book them in, right? It just goes against human nature. For example, with the short-term strategy, it's good to get as many messages as possible, but if you think about it psychologically, you're trying to get someone to go from a stranger to watching a 30-second video of your work, to then reaching out to you, to then building enough trust with you to book $1,000+ tattoo, all in the span of 30 seconds, right? It's just not that feasible. Okay, long term, of course, you're going to find some people who are ready, but it's going to be a diamond in the rough, right? Or the other way is with this long-term strategy, which is where I see an ad that is like one of your best performing reels, for example, that you're running as an ad, which is a cold traffic. I say, oh, this person's cool. I visit your profile, which is the natural next step, so I don't feel like I'm being forced down the funnel too quickly. I then consume all of the great content you're making from after this course. Then in 3 weeks' time, I start to see your retargeting ad, right? Because I've entered into your retargeting audience because I've started to engage with your content. And then that retargeting ad is sending me to your DMs. Then I reach out to your DMs. You're just gonna have such a better conversation with me, right? So that is why I really love this long-term strategy. And then the other thing with the retargeting ad is you can run this at a budget of like $5, for example, and you would never have to turn it off, because the better your cold ad is and the more content you're making, as you can see over here, the more people are going to be in your retargeting audience, right? Because your retargeting audience is an audience full of people that have engaged with your profile. So your cold ad here is building your retargeting audience, and the content you're making is building the retargeting audience, and the content you're making too is also giving you more videos that I've performed to run as a cold ad as well, which means you could improve the results on this. So you could get this down to 60 cents if you do another test, which I'm actually going to get into in a second. The whole point is the more content you make, the better for every situation here. All right. And then with the retargeting ad, you can be running this at $5 a day, which is really low. And it's guaranteed to hit everyone that knows who you are, because the ad's only running to those people, right? So that $5 is only being spent on those people. Okay. And what you could do is you can just run one ad, which is like an infomercial, or like, hey, I'm John, I do this type of style, I got into it because of this, I'm based here, which we'll get into in the course. And then you could, if you really want to get savvy with it, you could make like a variation of that same type of video. But the main thing is you could even just skip this and you could make this one ad really well, which you'll see examples of a great retargeting ad on the screen later in this course. And you would not need to touch this, right? So if I actually go to the next page here, I'll explain long-term how this works, right? For example, this is if you're using the long-term strategy. right? So step one is you build a cold traffic ad, open targeting, right? Profile visits, $25. You have an ad that's running at, you have 5 ads that are running. I'm actually going to change this to $1.20, right? So these 2 ads are doing great, right? They've got a cost per profile visit of $1.20. These 3 are shit, right? They're $3 cost per profile visit. So we turn these off. Then step 2, as you can see here, is we're going to duplicate this ad set, and we're going to just keep ad 1 and 2 only, right? As you can see here. What we can do then is we can increase the budget. And then if the results of ad 1 and 2 are less than or equal to what they were here, we can actually just leave this on and we can turn this one off, right? So now the only ad we're running is this one, right? We've got the 2 winners, the 2 best performers, and we also managed to spend more on it, because the issue is if you come in here and you're running this ad, if I go back here, if I go back to here, you turn this off, and let's say you're like, oh, this one's doing great. Let me change this to $40. The issue is you're editing a performing ad, so you could fuck it all up, and then these could skyrocket to like $3, and now you have no performing ads. So what you want to do is when you're testing and scaling, is you duplicate it, right? Then you raise the budget, and then for example, let's say this was actually more than $1.20. This was $3, right? So it didn't work. What you can do then is just turn this one off, and at least then you still have these 2 running. Okay. The issue is if you edit a performing ad, you could fuck it up and then you have no performing ads running. Okay. So that is how you can incrementally scale and improve a cold ad, right? And then step 3, as you'll see here, 4 weeks later, you will have been making more reels, right? In those 4 weeks. And you probably have 5 new reels that you could test as an ad, right? So then what you can do is you can come back in, you still have the current performing ad running, right? The 2 winners here at $40, because we scaled and duplicated, okay? Then what you can do is you can make a new ad set of open targeting. You're going to raise it at $25, and you're thinking, oh, I'm spending 65 at the same time. Yeah, when you're testing and scaling, you're going to temporarily you're going to be spending more money so that you can learn, okay? But the thing as well is if you know your numbers, it's not going to be as scary, which we're going to get into in this course, okay? But then what you can do is you have 5 new reels you want to test as an ad to see. Our goal is to see, can we beat the current cost per profile visit, which is this, right? $1.20. So let's say you make you still have this winners 1 and 2 running. You make a new ad set, and now you have ad 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which are the 5 new reels, okay? And you can see, okay, ad 8 and 9 get a 60 cent. I'm actually going to change both just for ease of numbers. They're getting a 60 cent cost per profile visit, right? Which is amazing. So we're going to turn off ad 6 and ad 7 and ad 10, right? We have ad 8 and ad 9. Now, the other thing as well, though, is you can see that ad 8 and ad 9 are doing twice as well as this one, right? You're getting 2 times as many visits on your profile for the same money, right? Because this is a 60 cent cost per profile visit and here, and then this is a $1.20 over here, right? So what you can do then is you can duplicate this one with 8 and 9, and now you have this one running at $40 with 8 and 9, so you've raised the budget. And then if it stays at 60 cent, amazing, you can turn off this one, right? So now the only current ad you have running is this one. The whole point is when you do these incremental tests over time, every couple of weeks, you're slowly getting your cost per profile visit to be lower and lower. And then once you get to a really, really good result, for example, this one here, okay? And these are made up numbers, by the way. You know, some ads have a cost per profile visit of like 10 cents, okay? But then what you can do then is, let me just make sure there's nothing else on this screen. Yeah, so let me go to the next one. So then, right, this is how it all works together. Now you have a cold traffic ad performing, okay? You have $40, you have ad 8 and 9, and let's say you have ad 2 as well because it was doing really well. And then you have a 60 cent cost per profile visit. So after that, you know, those 2 tests after those 4 weeks, you're getting 2x the amount of profile visitors with the same budget, okay? And what that's doing is, number 1, it's growing your retargeting audience, okay? So your retargeting ad is running, if you remember, at $5, and it's going to consistently keep performing, and that's going to keep the frequency down as well, because if you remember, the frequency is the amount of people who are seeing the ad. Your retargeting ad is only going to fail if the frequency is too high, if you see here, okay? And the only way the frequency is going to get too high is if your retargeting ad doesn't grow. Therefore, over time, everyone in your retargeting audience is going to keep seeing the same video, right? But if your retargeting ads is growing, your frequency is also going to keep going down. Because think about it this way. If you 5x the size of your retargeting audience, it means you're growing your retargeting audience 5 times faster, which means your frequency is growing 5 times slower. right? Because there's more and more people in your retargeting audience, so your frequency doesn't go up. Okay. So for example, you have this cold traffic ad performing, you've done a couple of tests, you have 3 amazing ads that are running at a very low cost per profile visit. You've also got this retargeting ad running, okay, that is doing really well. So you're spending $5. You could even, if your retargeting audience is growing very, very well, you could raise it to 10 max, okay? And you're getting like 2 or 3 messages a day from that retargeting ad. And those 2 or 3 messages a day are really high quality messages. So now you've got a beautiful system, right? You've got a cold ad that you don't need to touch because you've done the test and you have 3 ads that are running. They're getting super low cost per profile visit that are bringing more people onto your profile. Hence, and then your content is building up trust with them. So then they're entering your retargeting audience because they're engaging with your content. Then you've got this retargeting ad that you also don't have to touch, that you're spending $10 a day on, for example. So super low. And it's getting you 2 or 3 consistently high quality messages a day. And let's say out of every 10 messages you get from a retargeting ad, you're getting 5 bookings. So now all of a sudden you're getting 60 messages a month and 30 of those are booking, right? So you're getting 30 new clients. That's what you can attain if you do this properly. And the great thing is you actually don't have to touch those ads then. They're performing. You can check them every couple of weeks. And if your cold ad, your cost per profile visit goes up, you can just throw in a new test, right? And get it back down, okay? So if you remember, the cold ad is amazing. Sorry, the main thing as well is content is the key to everything here, okay? Because your content, as you'll see here, gives you new ideas for new ads, as you can see here, right? Which improves the cost per profile visit of your cold ad. Then it's also growing your retargeting audience, because if you're making content and you're getting new followers and you're getting new eyes and you're getting new engagement, it's growing this, which means that your retargeting ad frequency never goes up, which means you'll still consistently get 2 or 3 messages a day from your retargeting ad. Okay. So in a quick summary here, you've better content equals better cold ad results, right? Which equals new followers. And also better content directly equals new followers too. Okay, if you go viral or if a connection content goes viral, etc. Then new followers equals a bigger retargeting audience, which means better retargeting ad results, right? As you can see here, which means more high quality inquiries, which means more bookings. Okay, and if you remember, the retargeting ad only fails if the frequency is too high. So this is how you can have a long-term ad strategy that performs extremely well and generates you high quality and warm inquiries, rather than the short-term strategy, which is going from strangers straight to DMs, okay, which is rough. Okay, so I actually have built one last thing here, which is just a clear map. Okay, so you've got your cold audience, which is your open targeting audience. You're sending them to your IG profile. Then through your IG profile, they're watching content, etc., and they're joining your warm retargeting audience. Okay, and then you're sending them to the DMs. And what the short-term strategy is if you've seen the orange here, is you're going from the top to the end straight away. Okay, so it's super fast and it's rough, but it is good short-term, very short-term, because you're going to talk to a ton of people, right? Because you're sending people straight to the DMs. They don't have to kind of go through this evaluation phase of your IG profile and joining your retargeting audience. Okay, but if you remember from the funnel, the orange, as you can see here, the orange is like the short-term strategy. You're trying to get someone from completely not knowing who you are straight down to a paying client in like 30 seconds. It's rough, okay? And if we think of the numbers here long-term as well, and this is why the long-term strategy is so much better, okay? For example, let's say this is specifically talking about your cost per acquisition. So how much you actually have to spend to get one client. Let's say short-term, in a month, you spend $500, okay? And let's say your cost per lead is $10, so you get 50 messages, okay? And out of those 50 messages, you turn 5 of them into a client. And those 5 people spend $1,000 on average, okay? So you spent $500 and you've generated $5,000, okay? And you can see that's a really low, like this is a 10% conversion rate, meaning every 1 in every 10 DMs is becoming a client. And this is reasonable because with the short-term strategy, you're going from stranger to buyer. So 9 times out of 10 it's going to be too early, right? But with the long-term strategy, let's say you're spending $900 a month, right? So you're spending $25 a day on the open targeting and $5 a day on the retargeting, if you remember, okay? So let's say you spend $900, and through that you get people visiting your profile, and then your retargeting ad is spending $5 a day, right? So then you're getting 1 message a day through your ad, okay? Because your cost per message is going to be, or your cost per lead is going to be $5 because it's going to be cheaper because the ad is only running to people who know who you are. You're obviously going to get less messages than, the 50 a month, but let's say you're getting one a day, so you're getting 30, right, for $5. But one out of every two of these turn into a DM, or turn into a client. So out of every 30 messages, you get 15 clients, right? So then out of those 15 clients, they spend an average of 1,000 as well. So now you've made 15K long term over time, right? It obviously takes time to get to these numbers, but over time you can see that you're actually talking to way less people. They're way higher quality, and you make way more money, right? And you make way more profit as well. So that is the law of the numbers in the short term and long term. But this, short term strategy is really good if you really need clients, as I mentioned. But yeah, this is the way to go. You have a cold ad that sends people to your profile. Then your profile works your magic. They like you, trust you, they watch your content. They enter into your warm ad, and then your warm ad, your retargeting ad, sends them to the DMs where you can actually have a quality conversation. And that, in essence, is my strategy for running paid ads. So now let's actually go and build the short-term and long-term strategies together, and talk about how to optimize them and look at the results and stuff. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to set up your first campaign. Okay, so we're going to set up the short-term campaign primarily first, which is a cold ad that goes straight to your DMs. Okay, cold, remember, being a audience of strangers that goes straight to your DMs. Now, this is the least intensive audience, meaning that they have the lowest intent of buying, right? Because you're trying to bring them from a stranger to a paying client with one message conversation. So the reason that I recommend this as a short-term strategy is because if you need clients, the best thing you can possibly do is talk to as many human beings as possible. But the reason it's a short-term strategy is because most of the people you will talk to are not going to be ready to buy, right? If you remember the 3% buyers rule, most of the people that are going to reach out to you are not even near committing. But if you have it going straight through your DMs, what will happen is you will catch the people who are ready to buy and are serious faster than another artist who would just go visit profile, etc. So that is why this is a short-term strategy. Once again, this is a horrible strategy long-term, unless you had like an assistant, because you're going to get a ton of messages. You're going to get a ton of messages that don't seem that serious. Once again, we're going to break down in depth how to navigate all of those messages to get bookings in the sales part of this course. But yeah, just remember, this is a short-term strategy. And then after this video, I will show you guys how to set up the long-term strategy, which is a cold visit profile ad mixed with a retargeting straight to DMs ad, right? So if we go to the ads manager now, you'll see I'll disappear again, because I don't know why that happens, but I just disappear when I'm on the ads manager. But what we're going to do is set up our first campaign. Okay, so the campaign is going to be to get messages. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up on my own profile. And then what I'll do is I'll add later in the video, I'll add like examples of tattoo ads just to show you, because obviously my ads are different. They're aimed towards you guys and they're more wordy. But yeah, just letting you know, I'm setting this up on my own profile. Okay. So the first ad we're going to set up is a cold ad that is sending people straight to the DMs. All right. Temporary, but very efficient to get as many messages as possible soon, which is what a lot of you guys might need. So we're going to click engagement. Engagement, once again, if you remember, is to get engagement. So to get messages, we're going to click continue. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click manual engagement campaign. So you'll see a lot of suggestions. The issue with suggestions are it's like Facebook trying to take control. So I'm going to show you how to set it all up quite manually. I'll show you what suggestions you can leave and why they're valuable. But for a majority of the suggestions, it's just Facebook trying to relinquish your control bit by bit so that it's as close to, boosting a post, right? The whole point of doing it in the ads manager is that you can manually set it up if you know what you're doing. Okay, so you're going to click manual engagement campaign, click continue, and now we have created a new campaign. All right, so you can see new engagement campaign, new engagement ad set, and new engagement ad. So what I like to do first of all is name this stuff. Okay, and don't name it like something stupid or kind of quote unquote authentic. Name it exactly what it is, because over time you'll be making multiple ads and you'll want to be able to go back, look at the results, look what video worked in this ad, etc. How did I set this up? If you name it like if you name it something kind of obscure or like an inside joke, you're going to forget what it means. So what I'm going to do is, for example, I'm going to say ad course, engagement, campaign. I'm actually going to say cold engagement, cold IG DMs, right? So now I know it's an engagement campaign, it's to a cold audience, and it's to my IG DMs, all right? And then I'm going to say 2026. Now I'm saying ads course just so I know, but for you, you could put yourself there, okay? So your name, the actual campaign itself, and the targeting, and then when you're doing it, all right? So how to set up the campaign now is all of this is all good, okay? One thing I'm going to explain to you is budget, which is there's two options of budget. There's a campaign budget and an ad set budget. The main difference is if you have a campaign budget, basically, if you have multiple ad sets in that campaign, let's say you're targeting women in Japan and then you're targeting men in the US, for example. If you have a campaign budget, and let's say your budget per day is $50, if you set it on campaign, what it's going to do is randomly spend that $50 to the Tokyo women and the US men, right? But it's not going to spend $25 equally. Okay. If you want to spend $25 equally, you need to have an ad set budget, which is where you manually set a budget for each ad set. So, okay, I have a $50 budget total. I want to run an ad to, women in Japan, and I want to run an ad to men in the US. I'm going to put an ad set budget of 25 on each one, because the issue is, let's say your ad performs really, really well in Japan with the women. You're going to then spend $49 on that ad set, and the men in US are going to get nothing. Okay. So for you, I highly recommend you always just use ad set budget, especially if you're having multiple ad sets, because what will happen is you'll maybe set up a new test and it will get no spend, or it will get all the spend, etc. All right. So ad set budget, share some of your budget with other ad sets. This doesn't matter. You can leave this on because it's all going to be ad set budget anyway. And now you've got everything. You've got the name of the campaign. You've set it on ad set budget. The rest you don't have to worry about. So now you can click next. And now we're setting up the actual ad set itself. All right. So now I'm going to label it with the actual targeting. Like, where am I showing this to? So for example, let's say I want to run an ad to New York City, 10-mile radius, right? And I'm going to have it as open targeting. If you remember from the last video, you've got open targeting, you've got retargeting, and you've got other things like lookalike targeting, etc., which don't matter. Open targeting means the targeting is open, meaning we are not putting any specific metrics or targeting on this. We're not saying I specifically want women, or I specifically want people who have shown interest in Rolex. None of that shit matters anymore, right? With the Andromeda update, which is an update on Meta's AI algorithm, the creative is everything. It has trillions of touch points to learn. So the better your creative is, creative being your ad, the easier it's going to be for the algorithm to find the right people. Okay. So we don't want to say all this little targeting. Instead, what we want to focus our attention on is making our ads better. Okay. So open targeting, meaning it's open to everyone in New York within a 10-mile radius. We do not discriminate for this ad. Okay. And then conversion location is going to be message destinations, all right? Sometimes it might be on your ad or whatever. Just make sure it says message destinations. Then you're going to select the destination you want it to go to. So here, I'm going to unselect Facebook, okay? I just want it to go to my Instagram, all right? And performance goal should be maximize number of conversations. It's usually going to be on that anyway. Then you've got your daily budget here, okay? So this is the budget you want to spend daily. Once again, I recommend you guys spend at least $600 or euro a month. Okay. If you can't do that, if you're like, oh, I do not have that money, then you should not be running ads. The reason I say that is because your emotions will get in the way of you giving this enough time to see results. Okay. Because if it's your last 600 euro that you have, you're going to panic. You're gonna not see any messages in the first 2 or 3 days. No one's going to book, and then you're going to turn it off, and you're not even going to give it time to learn. Okay, you say you're not, but I promise you are. Okay, so I highly recommend, if you do not have even 600 euro, you should be making content for free. You should be setting up the automation that DMs every new follower, right? You should be reaching out to old clients. You should be focusing primarily on content and creating your profile, etc. Okay, this is what I recommend you do first, because if you don't have 600 euro, you're definitely not doing all of the other stuff that you can do, which means that your content is not even curated enough to be ready to run ads anyway. Okay, so minimum I recommend is 20 euro a day, for example. okay, or $20 a day. I know it's different, but it's whatever. So this is where you put your daily budget, okay? And the reason as well is you should not expect results within 2-3 days, okay? The whole point is it's completely random as to when. Let's say there's 3 people that are going to buy from your ad. You don't know if those 3 people are going to see it on day 1 or on day 29, okay? And the issue is you have to give it at least 30 days, right? At least that time to see like a whole month's worth of results. Because what if you spent money at 20 euro a day for 28 days, and then on the 28th day you said, oh, I'm going to let my emotions get in the way. I said I'd give it a month, but it's not working. But on the 29th day, you were about to get those 3 clients. Now that is an extreme example, and if you didn't get a single DM or anything in 28 days, obviously the ad's wrong. But I'm just trying to give you an extreme example to show you have to be committed to giving this 30 days at least, okay, and 600 euro. Because if you don't, you will not learn. You'll just be in this hamster wheel cycle of, I run an ad, nothing happens, I turn it off out of fear, and then I watch this video. You're just going to keep doing it, and you're never going to see any significant results. You have to be willing to burn that 600 euro, basically. You have to be willing to see no results from that 600 euro in order to learn, to get data, to understand what does work. I promise you, though, you will, of course, get results within the first month, but you have to be acceptant and willing not to. All right. And if you can't afford that, then you shouldn't be running ads just yet, because your emotions will get in the way. This is really important for you guys to understand. All right. So you're going to put your daily budget here. And now then you're going to leave the schedule. It will just launch as soon as you click launch. And now you're going to have your audience controls here. So I said I'm going to run this ad in New York City in a 10-mile radius. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit. In fact, yeah, I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to look up New York City. Okay. I'm going to select New York City. I'm then going to change the radius to 10 miles, as I mentioned. Okay. In terms of what I would recommend your radius to be, obviously the closer it is, the better. I would say a minimum of 10-15 miles. The reason I'm doing so close in New York is because it's so big. But the main thing is the people who are going to buy from you primarily, sorry, I can't multitask. The people who are going to buy from you primarily at the start are obviously going to be the closest to the shop. So when you're running ads, you want to run an ad that's, a close radius. And then if you want to spend more money and scale, you can make it bigger and bigger over time. Okay. Depending on your city. If your city is only 15 miles, in terms 15 miles wide, etc., just do 15 miles, right? And just for New York, like if I'm right in Manhattan here or whatever, then I'm going to do that. What I would recommend for you as well, though, is I would put the location of your studio exactly. So if let's say I'm running an ad for Monolith Studio. If I look up Monolith Studio, see if I select that, does it select the right one? Yeah, okay. So then I could do a 10-mile radius around Monolith Studio. So now it's going to be specifically 10 miles. It's very close, as you can see, but I would do that as well. So if you're on like the outskirts of your city, you want to make sure that you have a circle within the city, but also maybe a circle around your studio as well. So now what I'm going to do is get rid of this Ireland one. Okay. And now my ad is going to be running to these people. Okay. And then you'll also see reach more people likely to respond to your ads. We'll also show ads to people interested in your selected cities and regions in those countries. So yeah, we can do that too. Like if they think, oh, this person who's living right here or here or here actually has a really high chance of booking, let them do that, right? The algorithm is really good, especially to start, right? It's completely open. We're letting the algorithm solve our problems for us. All we have to focus on is making our ad really, really good, which we'll get into, okay? Then what we're going to do here is you'll see Advantage Plus Audience. We're going to leave this on, okay? This is where if we switch to Original, which we in the future further limit the reach of your ads. We'll actually do this sometimes if we're setting up a retargeting ad or a specific targeting. But remember, this is open. I know you're thinking, oh, I never tattoo anyone over the age of 50. The more you can leave it open to start, the more Instagram will learn itself. Okay. We want Instagram to learn itself that you only tattoo, usually get people over 50. Because if it does, then it will start to send more people to where you got results. Okay. So leave it completely open, ages, genders, advantage, detailed targeting. Now, this is one thing you could do. I recommend if you've run ads before or you have a decent following, I'd recommend not doing this. But if you're like completely new, you've just created your profile, you're creating content, you have like 1,000 followers max or whatever, you could go in here and you could say like tattoo, and you could just give it a quick kind of nudge as to where you want it to go. But the other thing too is someone might really love a tattoo, but haven't been looking at tattoos, okay, or hadn't seen anything they liked and interacted with. That's a nudge you can give it. I would recommend if you've read ads before, or if you have a big profile, bigger meaning like, you know, more than 5,000 followers, etc. You don't need this, okay? The algorithm will know where your people are, all right? But this is the issue I see is a lot of people are like they're doing Rolex or, you know, high income earners, and none of this shit matters anymore because of the Andromeda update, right? What matters is the quality of your ad, okay? If you have a high quality ad, who's that going to stop in their tracks? High quality people, all right? So that's your setup. So if we go back to the start here, you've got the name, so open targeting, right? It's targeting everyone within that radius. You've got your message destination, you've got your budget, and now you've got your audience, okay? And you are leaving this completely open, okay? And then the last thing then is your placement. So the placement, once again, is where your ad is actually going to be placed. Like, do we want it to show up on the Facebook feed, Instagram feed, stories, etc.? Now, what most people would say, especially if you're new, is to leave it on Advantage Plus as well. Let Facebook spend on whatever placements and let it learn. I've done this so many times now for the last, 3.5 years, that the results, the actual results, not only the messages, but the actual bookings, they all come from the same place. Okay. They come from Instagram stories, the Instagram feed, and Instagram reels. So I'm just going to save you the time here doing all these tests. Turn off Facebook here. Okay. Turn off Instagram profile feed, Instagram Explore, Instagram Explore Home. You also, this is, by the way, the ads manager is super glitchy. Just get used to it. Instagram stories, Instagram reels, profile reels can go off. Okay. And then everything else. So I only have on here the feed, Instagram stories, and the Instagram reels. Okay. The reason is I've just done this so many times. It's always the same results. So you can skip that test and just go to manual placements and do that. Okay. And then what we're going to do is click next, and we're going to create the actual ad itself. So I'm going to show you how to set up the settings for this. And then I'm actually going to pass you over for 10 minutes and talk in depth about what makes a great visual ad. It's super important. And then what we'll do is we'll come back, we'll pop the ad in, and then we'll publish this campaign together. Okay. So I'll just put in a video for now, just so you can see what it looks like. So let me just put this video in, and then we'll switch it to a tattoo video. Okay. But what you're going to do is actually, just so I can show you, is you're going to go set up creative, video ad, right? If you're running a video, I recommend you run videos. You can also test carousels, which we'll get into, but you're going to select video ad. You're going to trim it if it needs trimming. It shouldn't need trimming. You're going to crop it to make sure that it fits the right ratio, which it does. Okay. I'm actually going to put on the screen here the ratios for each thing. So you need a different ratio for feed and a different ratio for stories. I'm going to put that on the screen, and then I'll show you how to set that up as well. Okay. You're going to turn off flexible media. Okay. We're going to set up everything manually. All right. So you can see here, turn on flexible media to show media you choose for a specific aspect ratio. What it's going to do then is if you don't have it set up with the right ratio or format, it's just going to crop it automatically, and it's going to look terrible. Okay. So you turn that off. We're going to upload it with the right cropping. Okay. Then we're going to click next. Then you're going to have your primary text. Okay. So your primary text is basically the caption on the feed or reels, right? It's the caption. Okay. So for example, let's say I said microrealism, tattoo artist based at Monolith Studio in Brooklyn, New York City. Click. Now this is where you have a clear call to action. Okay. As you can see, it's glitching the hell out because it does that all the time. Let me just go back here. Click send message button. Click the send message button to discuss your tattoo idea, for example. Okay. I'll get into in depth after we make the ad itself, what caption can complement it. Okay. That's doesn't matter. Okay. So then we're going to continue on here. Make sure that all of this is turned off as well. Advantage plus creative text generation. Okay. Because this is going to automatically have AI make like versions of this, but you can see, look, Brooklyn's best kept secret for custom tattoos. We don't want to sound like this, right? So make sure this is off. You can see the call to action button is send Instagram message, but it actually says send message on the ad. So that's why I've said send message. I'll show you. Then we're going to click next. Translation, we don't need that for now. Okay. And then what you're going to be able to do is see a preview here. Okay, I just switched out the video because there was something wrong there. But anyway, you'll see a preview of the ad here, how it looks on the feed, on the stories, on the reels. You can see if the if it's cropped properly, etc. If it looks funny on the stories, for example, or the reels, you can actually change the formatting and ratio on the video and then re-upload it. And what we can do here is, for example, let's say it perfectly fits the feed, but the stories and reels, it doesn't fit, right? Or it's probably going to be vice versa. What you can do here is edit. You can then change it here. So you can actually upload or select a different video. So let's say you uploaded it twice, one with the format to suit the feed and one with the format to suit the reels and stories. What you can do here is we want to change this for the feed. So I'd have this video here twice, I'd select it and then add it in there. So then it's going to fit the feed and it's going to fit the stories. Okay. But you can see, you can have a preview of everything. So you want to just double check this too, to make sure it looks good. Okay. We're going to get into that again once we've made your reels, but you can see the video here. You can see the caption, right? Microrealism tattoo artist. You can see the send message button. Okay. Hence why I have the send message call to action. All right. And it all looks good to me. So now I know this ad could be run. All right. The other thing you want to do is you want to name this ad, because we're going to run multiple ads and test multiple ads at the same time. Okay. So this could be, for example, number one. So this could be, let's say, dragon tattoo, for example. All right. And don't worry, once I upload multiple ads from an actual tattoo artist, I'll rename them again so you can really see. Okay. The other thing I want you to do is turn off multi-advertiser ads. All right. Your ad can appear with others in the same ad unit. Basically, your ads are going to show up alongside other tattoo ads. We don't want that, right? We want our ad to be seen individually and for it to stand out, which I'll talk about. Okay. So multi-advertiser ads off, everything is set up. Then the last thing then is setting up your message template. Okay. So this is where when they click send message, what they're going to see. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to say create new, edit template, and we're going to actually edit this template. Okay. So when someone clicks on the ad, if I just slow down here, when someone clicks on the ad, they click on the send message button. Then once they land on the send message button, once they click on the send message button, they land to something that looks like this. Okay. And what this is basically an introduction to you. And then you're going to give them an option on what to click. Okay. So for example, what is your tattoo design process? Do you have any availability this month? Can I see some examples of microrealism work? Right there, AI generated ones that honestly, they're not too bad, but I'm going to show you how to edit them and what I recommend you say, etc. And then after that, what's going to happen is they're going to click on one of those buttons. It's then going to start a conversation with you in your DMs. You're going to see that's going to be their first message, like, what is your tattoo design process? And then you're going to take over manually and talk to them. Okay. And we'll get into exactly how to navigate that conversation in the next part of the course. All right. So what we first want to do is make sure that this sounds like you. Okay. So the first thing as well is I keep it to two options. I like to have two options. For example, I would like to discuss a tattoo idea I have, right? And then I have, for example, I have another question, right? This is easy. So it's like, hey, I want to discuss a tattoo idea. Then you're getting straight into having a mini consultation with them, which I'll show you how to do. And then if they have another question, you can say, sure, hit me, and you can take it from there. Okay. The more options you give them, the more confused they're going to be, right? And the more specific. If you also say, for example, can I get a quote on this? You're already incentivizing, you're forcing people to talk about price already, right? We don't want them to be transactional. Okay. We want to talk about their idea first. So I like these two. You could also have another one, for example, that says, hey, I want to book a consultation, or I want to book a tattoo. It's a bit quick, because the issue is, if you say I want to book a tattoo, and that's your only option, if someone just has a quick question or wants to discuss an idea first because they're not too sure yet, which most of them won't be, you are going to scare away 99% of people, right? And yeah, you might get one message every 10 days, but you also might not have the skills to navigate that person into a a tattoo, meaning that you're not talking to anyone and you're not booking anyone. Okay, so you want to keep it open. I like it open here, and you want to then naturally guide the conversation towards booking the tattoo later. Once again, you'll see a whole 2-hour section on sales and communication later after this paid ad section. Okay, so the other thing you can do here is in this text, you can add their name, which I like to do. So you could say, hey, and then if I click on this, first name of recipient, as you can see, and then you can write this, but in your own words, like, how can I help you? Or how can I help you? Smiley face, whatever's on tone with you. Okay. Not so important. Sorry, I've got this fucking Spanish keyboard, so everything is. Oh, don't do a sad face. Yeah, everything is in the wrong place. Okay, so continuing on. Turn off this follow-up message. We don't want to be pushy. I'll talk about the best follow-up message you can do. But now you've got your nice setup. Also, as well, if someone says I have another question, sorry, let me get rid of this. Sorry, yeah. So just double check the spelling of everything, and then you can actually save this as a template. For example, you could say C23 Labs course DM template, right? So you know which one you want to use in the future, which I'll show you why that's important. So then you can click save. Okay. So then the next time you're making an ad, it might be like this. Okay. And you're like, oh, that's not mine. Can I learn? No. So you go use existing, and then you can select that template. And then for any other ad you run in the future, for example, the retargeting ad straight to your DMs, you can use this same template. Okay. So save it as a template, double check it. You can actually preview it on Instagram, and it will send you the message as well. And you can actually see what it looks like in your conversations just to make sure you're happy with it. But that in essence is how you set up your first cold DM campaign. What we're going to do then as well is once we've set up one ad from top to bottom, we can then go over to the 3 dots here. We're going to duplicate it. For example, let's say we want to run 4 different types of ads, right? So we're going to duplicate this 3 times. And then you've got 3 copies, right? So this could be then number 2. Okay, so this could be, for example, introduction video, which I'll get into. This could be, for example, samurai tattoo. And then this could be custom made ad, for example. I'll get into what all of that means as well and the different types of ads I recommend you make. But what you can do then is you can just rename them. And since it's all set up perfectly, all you have to do is swap out the ad. So you can just remove media here, add video, and then you're back here and you can upload your videos again and just go through the same process. Okay. Then you will have your first ad, which is a cold DM ad running in New York to 10 miles, and you have 4 different videos running. The budget you put on it will spend on these 4 videos. 2 of the videos mainly will get most of the spend, meaning that they're the best. And then we will turn the other ones off. I'm going to show you exactly how to optimize your ads and like improve them in this course as well. But yeah, now you have your first ad. What I'm going to do now quickly is show you what creatives I would make as a tattoo artist and how to make them. And then what we'll do is come back, we'll add one example of each in here, and then we'll publish the ad. And then the next thing we'll do is look at results and explain what it means. Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to make great creatives or videos or images for paid ads. So the first thing you need to understand here is the Andromeda update, okay, which means you need variety. What this basically means is back in the day, the algorithm used to work through specific targeting that you did, right? You could target for museums, you could target for people interested in art, people interested in philosophy, etc. Now, because the AI algorithm is so good now due to, technical advancements, none of that shit is really that important anymore. What's more important is the quality of your creative. Because the AI algorithm is so good, it will go and find the right people based on your video. It's just able to do that now. What that means for advertisements is the variety that you do in your ads is not done through targeting. So you don't have variety in your targeting. You now have a variety in the creatives that you're running. Okay. Also, back in the day, you could do what's called hook testing, where it's like you make 10 videos, they're all the same, and the only difference is the first 3 seconds. That is not so impactful anymore due to the Andromeda update, because what happens is the AI counts those 10 videos as the same video because they're so similar, right? So what you need to do now is have a variety in your creatives, meaning if you're running 5 ads, those 5 ads have to be very different to each other in terms of the structure of that ad and the angle that you're coming from, instead of it just being like, okay, I swapped one video out, or I swapped one sentence out at the start of the video. That isn't as effective anymore. Okay. The second thing I need you to understand is that the best ads do not feel like ads. It feels like organic content that has landed on someone's page, right? We want people to feel like they are making every decision themselves, right? We don't want them to feel like they're being hit with an ad that is forcing them to pay attention to you sometimes, right? The best ads feel like a reel, which means that if a client sees the ad and then goes onto your profile for it or reaches out to you, they feel in control of that situation. They feel in control of that decision. They feel like it was kind of destiny that you arrived on their feed rather than it being a targeted ad, if that makes sense. Okay. So the reason I'm saying this is because long term, when you're continuously running ads and you want to test different ads, the best indicator for what's going to make a great ad is what has performed previously for you in your content. Because remember, your ads are trying to attract people who are highly likely to buy. If your content is relating to people, to your ideal clients, to people who have already bought, then of course the ad that's going to relate to people who are your ideal clients but just don't know who you are is going to be the same as the content, if that makes sense, right? Remember, all our ads are doing is trying to find more ideal clients. So see what your ideal clients loved about your content, implement that into your ads. Okay. Once again, the best performing content usually equals the best performing ads. All right. What you can do then is you can add like a different hook or a call to action at the end of the ad to make it a little bit more suitable for an ad, which we'll get into. But in regards to ads in general, it's usually the highest performing reels you have also then perform really well as ads. I've seen it time and time again. Okay. And remember, if you're making an ad from scratch, let's say you're not using a reel, every single video we make, every creative we make, no matter what it's for, has to follow the hook, retain, reward structure, which you've learned previously in this course. Okay. And then another side tip for you, you can actually check out your competition on the Facebook ads library to see how you can stand out, right? Ask yourself, how can I stand out? This is another thing too, is sometimes you guys make really good ads, or you feel you make really good ads, but you don't understand or you don't realize that your ad looks the same as every other realism artist in your city. For example, if you search up facebook.com/ads/library, it will actually bring you to what's called the Facebook ads library here. And what the Facebook ads library is once again, it's a library of all the ads that are currently running. So what you can do is you can actually search up tattoo artist and your city, or tattoo and your city, to see what ads are running. So for example, let's say I'm from New York. I could click the United States, the ad category, you're going to select all ads, right? Because we're not dealing with issues, housing, employment, financial. And then if I looked up tattoo artist, New York City, and I search that, every ad that is running that mentions that, whether it's in the video or in the caption or text, is going to show up. What I can do is I can go through these and I can watch all of these videos, look at the images, and I can see my competition. Okay. Because if I know what my competition is running, I know how I can stand out. Yes, maybe the quality of my work is the same, but how could I present it in a way that is actually going to interrupt people's patterns? Remember, hook, retain, reward. How can I present it in a different way so that when they see my ad, it feels different? Because the other thing you have to understand is, because the algorithm is so good now, if someone clicks on one tattoo ad, they're going to get everyone's. So you have to make sure that your ad stands out. It doesn't necessarily mean your tattoos have to be better than everyone's. Obviously, that would be lovely, but that's not going to relate to everyone. What does matter is that your ad stands out. Okay. So what I would do is I'd go through, I'd watch, I'd take note of what people are running. I would take note of any ads that I feel are really well done and how I could take inspiration from it, but make mine better. But this is a really helpful thing you can do. So once again, you can look up tattoo artist New York if you're in New York, or you could look up tattoo New York. It will probably give you a different range of ads as well. As you can see, yeah, these are kind of different here. And yeah, I would really go through, watch everyone. You'll start to see, wow, these are all very similar. You'll also start to see, wow, some of these ads are really terrible. Okay, if this is my competition, I have a really high chance. Now, the other thing you can do is you can filter on the right here by the date. The reason you can do this too, the reason I recommend you do this is because we're right now we're filtered by active ads, which means that every ad you see here is currently running, still running. Okay, so if I scroll all the way down here, it's only going to show me currently till February. But if I actually go back up here and I filter, say I go to June 2025 to, let's say we go back to September. So anything that started then, let's say we apply these two filters. Okay, we can see, for example, these ads for Tattoo Garden New York have been running since August 28th, 2025. So that is a couple of months. What that means is these ads are obviously performing for this person. Otherwise, they would turn them off. Okay, so what you can do is, okay, let me watch this video. I can see the way that it's set up. I can see the music they're using. I can see the shots. This is obviously working for them. So let me take inspiration from that. Now you want to do that a couple of times. I think, let me see if I can actually do it again, but find some more as well. Let me go to September to October, for example. Okay, just these two again. All right, let me look up Tattoo New York just to make sure. Yeah, what I would recommend is doing a variety of the searching. You could also write New York City, right? You could also do New York City. And I would do this a couple of times because I know for sure there's not only 2 ads in New York about tattoos that are running since August, right? There's multiple. Okay, we've got more here. Let me go filters. Let's go 2025. Let's say ads that started running in May to ads that started running to September. To apply these 2 filters. Right, so we've got more here. Okay, so these are also performing as well because they've been running them. Well, this is December 15th. That's not too long, but this has been running since October 24. Wow. So this ad has been running. Oh, it's now hiring Pierces. Okay, never mind. Anyway, do this a couple of times. Search different keywords. Filter back to like 6 months before and see what ads are still running for 6 months. Because if they're still running, it means they're probably working, right? Because they wouldn't keep running them. If they weren't working, they'd turn them off and save their money. Okay, well, most people. So that's how you can use the Facebook Ads Manager to get an insight into your city, what your competition is, what people are running, and how you can stand out before making. Okay, so moving on here, what creatives should you make for each type of ad campaign? Once again, these tips or this guidance is from my personal experience. So if you see other people running Rails that you know are performing that don't fit into my categories, by all means, learn from them too. I'm just showing you what has worked for me over the last 3 years. Okay. So when it comes to cold IGDM creatives, once again, this is your short-term strategy. It needs to be a little bit more direct, right? Because remember, we're trying to get people to actually send the message, right? We're not, for example, running our best performing reel without any hook or call to action and hoping that someone sends a message, right? We're really trying to go for this. So what I would recommend is you make 5 creatives initially to test. Okay. The first 2 is going to be you naming your city or calling out your city, then showing your best tattoo work, and then having a call to action at the end, like click send message below. Right. The variety between these 2 is going to be the tattoos that you show and the music. Once again, don't just switch one tattoo out. You need to switch nearly all of them. Remember, we need variety in the creative testing. Okay. Right now, I'm going to show you 2 great examples of this in particular. Okay, as you can see, calls out the city you're in, shows your best work, has a call to action, right? This is very, obviously, this is not something you would post as a piece of content, but because this is a cold IG DM creative, right? We're trying to get bookings as much as possible. You need to be a little bit more direct in this particular short-term strategy, okay? Then what you can do as well is use 2 of your best performing reels, but make sure to add a send message call to action at the end. Now, the other thing I would do as well, actually, is city call out too. I forgot to write here. So once again, you can take your best performing reels. All the edits you have to make on it is naming your city somewhere at the start as a text hook, right? And then having your send message call to action at the end of the video, like click send message below to discuss your idea, as we've discussed before. Okay. Once again, you don't want to assume, you don't want to be laid back when it comes to this short-term strategy. You need to call people, you need to call your city out, and you need to tell them what to do next, right? And then you can also create one ad that is just a carousel of your best work. Once again, this carousel needs to have your city labeled and a call to action on the front cover of that. An example here of a carousel of tattoos that would make a great ad is one that Eden Body Art Studios posted before, right? These are really lovely photos. examples of the best work. Okay, so imagine making that for yourself. To make it suitable for an ad, what you can do is you can have the city written up here and the call to action. I actually have a very horrible example here, but this is what it could look like. So you have the city and then you have your written call to action here. That is what would make a great carousel ad. Okay, moving on then for the cold traffic ad, right? So remember, this is the long-term strategy now for the cold ad that's going to strangers visiting your profile. This is where you can be a little bit less direct and make your ads feel like organic content. Okay, so you're going to have 5 creatives as a total initial test as well. The first thing you're going to do is use your 3 best performing reels, okay? And make sure to use at least one piece of viral content and connection here, okay? We want to make sure that when we're running ads, it's not just quick viral content that gets attention. We want to try a connection piece of content too, because remember, if you're running an ad, the other thing I need you to understand is when you're running an ad, you are paying to get guaranteed attention. So obviously when we're making organic content, we're making viral content to give us the highest chance of getting new attention, right? Of getting more views or getting views from strangers. With connection content, we obviously write a good hook to give that content a chance, but that's not the main goal of that content. The main goal is to build trust in a connection, right? But imagine if every piece of connection content was guaranteed to go viral. You'd only make connection content because it would go viral and you'd build up trust. So the reason I love to run connection content, so stories and etc., for ads is because you're guaranteed to get thousands of strangers to see that video. So if it's a piece of connection content, if your ideal client sees it, they're also going to build trust and relationship with you, and they have a higher chance of following and reaching out, etc. Right? So make sure that you use at least one piece of connection content here when you're running your best performing reels as ads, right? Another thing then is if you have a low click-through rate on your ad, which we'll get into later in the course, but your click-through rate is what percentage of people who saw your ad click through onto, sending you a message or visiting your profile, etc. What you can do is when you're looking at the results on your ads and it has a low click-through rate, you can just add a call to action at the end of it and then re-upload it. So for example, let's say you run your best performing reel and it has no call to action. It doesn't have like visit my profile to check out more of my work. You see that it has a really low click-through rate. What you can do is then add a call to action to say, hey, visit my profile to check out more of my work. Just whack that onto the connection content, for example, and then repost it again as a new ad, okay? But what you'll probably find is your best performing reels will also have a very high click-through rate on your ad because they're so good, right? That's why they're the best performing. So then for the other 2 creatives I want you to run, you can choose between 2 of these 3. So once again, city, tattoo work, visit, profile, call to action ad. So the same as this one. So if you've already made that and it's performed really well, you can use that. Another one you can have is an introduction video with a visit profile call to action. This is really important. You need to add the different call to action, right? This one is a send message, for example. This one is visit profile, like, hey, visit my profile to check out more about me and my work, right? Because remember, this is an ad that's telling people to visit your profile. So once again, you've made the introduction video, or you know what introduction video you need to make based on the previous part of the course, right? Optimizing your profile and all of that stuff, like the pinned video. Take that video and whack a visit profile call to action on it. It will perform really well as an ad. And then once again, you can have a carousel of your best work, but instead of it saying click send message, it can say click visit profile to check out more, right? So your initial test for cold traffic is going to be your 3 best performing reels with a call to action added on them if you need to do that later on. First, we'll see the results on their own. Then pick 2 of these 3 yourself as well, okay? For example, if you're a tattoo artist who doesn't need bookings immediately and you're not even going to do this and you're going to skip straight to the long-term strategy, you can probably skip this because you're never going to need to make this, or you haven't made it before. If you're running the short-term strategy and then you're now switching over to the long-term, you already have this made, so you could probably just whack this in. So yeah, if you're going straight to the long-term, maybe these 2 are the easiest to do because you need to make this anyway, right? Based on the course. And then also you need to make this too, because you're going to pin, these are both pinned posts on your profile, if you remember, okay? And then finally, you've got your retargeting ad creatives, right? So remember, your retargeting ad is your ad that's running, sending people directly to your DMs, but it's only running to people who already know who you are, okay? And the best video for this is going to be the introduction video, once again, with a send message call to action, okay? 2 variations is optional. If you want to make 2 videos, you can, but what I would recommend is putting so much effort into this for your pinned profile post and then using that as your ad, right? So start with one very high quality intro video for now, okay? I'm going to show you on the screen now some great examples of intro videos that will perform well as an ad.
Hey, my name is Casco. Stop, bro. Right now, no one cares about you. So quick and dirty, tell me what you're doing. All right, hit it, Kiss. So I do realism tattoos. Are they good? No, they're fucking great. So I've been creating tattoos for over 5 years. I have clients traveling from all over the world. Every tattoo I make, every detail I put in, is made with the intention of looking amazing for the rest of my client's life. Technically, I don't just make tattoos. I make art on a living, moving canvas. You want to hear more? Follow my page or click the link below.
My name is Constanza and I'm a tattoo artist located in Brooklyn, New York. I have been tattooing for 6 years and I specialize in microrealism, surrealism, botanic, and pet portraits. What I love about tattooing is you can meet so many different people from different countries, and all of them, it is one point in common, that is art. And just for you know, my bookings are open if you want to book with me by Tattoo Do the app or Tattoo Do the web.
My name is Edwin Tedebring. I'm 29 years old and I've been tattooing for 8 years. My style, I usually describe it as black and gray abstract with semi-realistic influences, and I focus a lot on textures. I take inspiration a lot from nature, for example, so like the texture of rocks, wood, texture of plants, but also when I'm doing like realistic motifs, I like to sort of bring things to life with textures. I don't want things to be so smooth. I want it to be a bit rougher, but that to me is more interesting, and that in itself sort of brings things out a bit. That is a good question. I think there's been many phases throughout my career, and I'm currently getting less and less influenced by tattooing, which is a deliberate choice. I'm trying to get more inspired by other things because...
Now, another type of ad that works really, really well, or type of creative that works really, really well for a retargeting ad, are client testimonials. Especially if you are a tattoo studio, I would actually recommend running your client testimonials as retargeting ads now. I actually worked with a huge tattoo studio in the past, and we ran ads on Google, Facebook, and Instagram, and we had like a type form that took nearly 10 minutes to fill out. That was their conversion mechanism, which is crazy, right? But because we were running their client testimonials as retargeting ads, I'm building so much trust. And remember, we had such different avatars from the stories. So like if a 25-year-old male watched or a 35-year-old female, it didn't matter. There was at least one ad that was specifically speaking to that ideal client. They actually were getting type form submissions. So a type form, once again, that takes 10 minutes to fill out. They were getting them for $10 a pop, right? So they're only spending $10 to get one of those long form forms, right? And you can almost imagine how high quality that client is, okay? So if you're a studio, great thing to use is client testimonials as ads. If you're an artist, you're probably not going to be spending that much anyway, so you can stick to the introduction. But over time, if you want to try out different things, if you want to test your client testimonials, feel free to do that, and feel free to test them alongside your introduction video, because they might perform. And I've seen them perform really, really well. Okay. So you can test it as your retargeting audience grows and you want to try out new videos too. Just a little side note. But if you're a tattoo studio, I'd actually think about doing this straight away. Okay. So some notes as well. Creatives follow the same structure as content, right? Strong hook, interest, keeping attention throughout the video, and a clear ending call to action, right? Your best performing reels should be your open ads, but you need to define best performing. This is another thing, right? If you throw up a meme, for example, shitting on your clients and it goes viral, this is not your best performing reel, right? It's your most viewed reel. I would define best performing as the reel you found had the highest amount of engagement with your ideal audiences, right? Your ideal clients. Because remember, we're guaranteed to get thousands of views on these ads because we're paying. So obviously figure out what your ideal clients, what content your ideal clients love the most, and use them as ads, because our ads are trying to get clients. They're not trying to get attention as much as clients. You know what I mean? So figure out what your ideal clients love, even if that content isn't the most viewed, because that's going to be the highest performing as an ad in terms of getting bookings. All right. So once again, ask your ideal clients, and also a combination of views, likes, comments, saves, shares, not just the view count, right? Remember, memes go viral, but they're not your best performing ads. They're not going to get people to want to visit your profile, for example. Okay. So just to make sure, if you take your top 3 most viewed videos, they were highly viewed for positive reasons and are targeted towards your ideal clients and not artists, right? So just make sure, like if you're looking at your top 3 videos to use, make sure that your ideal clients like them too, and they're not memes, etc. All right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through 2 of my clients' profiles, and I'm going to pick out what I would use as their paid ad creatives, okay, based on their content. So the first person I'm going to start with is actually George. The reason for this is, first of all, I love George. Second of all, the last time I was with George in New York, he mentioned that he wanted to potentially start running ads and would want some help on that. So I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. I'm going to run through and I'm going to point out what would make great ads for him. and then he can watch this too and be very happy. Okay, so the first thing is, as I mentioned before, if we're running the long-term strategy, which we would with George, we want to use his 3 best performing reels. So the first one that's easily going to be the standout is this pin post he has that got millions of views, which is really short, simple, and I love the lifestyle shot, right? That is going to perform really well as an ad. What I would do is I'd probably write New York or Brooklyn, and then I would have the call to action there. Okay, check out more of my work, for example. You might not even have, he might not even need the call to action. He could just write New York, but it's very important to say what city you're in. Okay, so that's the first that I would use. So let's find another one here that we could potentially use too. So let's see here. Okay, boom, this is a carousel video. It's gone very viral. Now, I might not use this just in case because it's older. Yeah, because it's older, and also because it performed really well, but it was nearly 3 years ago. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to perform well now. Okay, so let's go to our more recent work just to be sure. And so I'm going through here. This one has a high amount of views. Okay, this is a cool video. I've seen this before, but he doesn't actually show his tattoos here. But okay, here's an idea. So this is how you could start to get creative as well, though. So this video is very high performing. As you can see, 2 million views, right? This video is also very high performing, but it doesn't actually contain any finished tattoo. So what I could do is I could take this clip, could take this video, use it, and then add at the end of the video shots of his finished work, like this one. And let's look at another one like this one, etc. So that's how you could combine 2 high performing reels into one that's going to perform as an ad, for example, and test that. Okay. And because the issue with running this as an ad on its own is it doesn't have a payoff. It doesn't have their finished tattoos, etc. People are not going to understand what he's about. You know what I mean? So once again, let's continue here. Okay. We've got, what's this? This is a piece of connection content. Right. So once again, this would make a great retargeting ad, right? This is an interview with George as a person. Once again, I love George so much. He's a great guy. So this would work really well as a retargeting ad. It would also work really well if it was, yeah, so we'd maybe cut out that whole intro or cut it shorter and go straight here. But this would make a really good ad as well because it shows his tattoos, it introduces you to him, etc. So there you go. There's an example of 3 ads you could run based on his previous content, right? You could run this as its individual ad with the city on it. You could combine, where is it? You can combine this video with clips of his best performing reels of other tattoos like this one, etc. And then finally, I would use this video because it's a great connection piece of content and it's a great introduction to him. I would obviously shorten it to make sure that it performs well as a reel, because that intro is a little bit too long of the funny side. We could probably cut down that funny side, but it's a great video, right? So there's an example of 3 videos that would work very, very well for George when it comes to running ads. Okay. Now, the reason I haven't gone into too much depth on some of the connection content is because I actually know that George does a lot of his connection building through the stories that he does, and he gets a lot of trust built through his stories. So he is an example of an artist who has amazing content in general, but not so much in-depth connection content right now, because quite frankly, he doesn't need it. But let me show you another artist that I've worked with before, Pascal, that also has great content. And let me point out 3 or 4 reels that he's made, viral and connection, that would perform really well as an ad. Okay, so this is Pascal here. Pascal, another great guy, probably the nicest guy you'll ever meet in your life. Anyone who's watching this who knows Pascal knows what I'm talking about. But he is a great example of an old client of mine who makes really, really good viral content and connection content and conversion content. Okay. Hence, you can see these 3 pin posts here, right? Leg tattoo. This is a great example of a client story. Tattoos when you're older. This actually went viral. So these are actually 2 pieces of conversion content. So talking about someone's fear or hesitation, right? So for example, how will it look when I'm older? Does my tattoo need to have meaning? But because he has such a good hook and because he's made it so well, these actually went viral too, these are actual conversion content. So the whole goal of these was to actually get clients and get inquiries, but because he made them so well, they went viral too. But a great example of the first reel that we could run is definitely this reel, which is a story about a client who flew all the way from US to Denmark, where Pascal is, to get a full leg sleeve. Okay, it's a really well-made story. It's a beautiful tattoo. So if Pascal wanted more clients in the US, this would be the #1 video he should run as an ad. The hook is obviously very curious, like, oh, this person flew all the way from US to the Denmark to get a tattoo. Then they see the finished piece, and then it makes people realize in the US, oh my God, I thought that it was impossible for me to get a tattoo in Denmark. Of course I could get a tattoo in Denmark. I just have to fly, right? So first video I would run as an ad, especially for Pascal. If Pascal was to be running ads, it would obviously to be getting higher quality, higher paying bookings, which are going to be in the US, right? Because if you think about it, it actually is less expensive for someone in the US, for example, in New York, to fly to Denmark, get a full sleeve and fly home. Okay. So this would work great as an ad. These are pieces of conversion content. So I wouldn't run these as an ad because they're not particularly talking about Pascal or his work, for example, but they touch on really great fears. But once again, here's another video you could run that would be a great ad, right? Hey, my name is Pascal. It's an introduction to him. This would be a great retargeting ad, and you could also try it as a cold ad, okay? Once again, really highly edited, really well done as well. And it also shows some of his great work, right? So that's there's two examples, right? You've got your introduction video, you've got a piece of connection content, which was from the US to Denmark. Now, Pascal is also very good at making viral content too, okay? So as you can see here, this is another reel that nearly has 1 million views, which is a viral piece of content, right? It's solely focused on showing his finished tattoos. As you can see here, he's wrapping around, he's pulling the arm over. He's then showing this shot of the arm too. So main thing is if he added a logo or a text of his city here, so saying wherever he is, Aarhus, this would make a great ad too, okay? Because it's proven to perform as well. So there's an example of 3 ads that I could take from Pascal's content that I know would perform really well. First of all, his viral piece of content I just showed you. Second of all, his story about decline from the US to Denmark. And then thirdly, the video of him introducing himself, okay? Now, the other thing is there's probably plenty more here that we could use as well. For example, this reel has gone viral in the past too, many times. I've seen this, great reveal of the back piece, etc. So for example, if Pascal was to run ads, he could run 4 really well-made ads right now. He could run this one. He could run the other viral piece of content, which was showing the arm sleeve. He could run the introduction to him, which is funny and really well edited. And then he could also run the story video that went viral of the client traveling from the US to Denmark. Okay. So there's an example of 2 guys I work with, how they could use their content to make really performing ads. Both of them don't need to run ads. But if they wanted to, George mentioned he did, they could do that by using the tips I gave about these creatives. And that's it. That's how you make a great creative for your paid ads, right? Remember, you need to have variety due to the Meta AI update, the Andromeda update it's called. You can look into it more if you want. Secondly, as well, remember the best ads don't feel like an ad. They feel like they landed on that person's feed through destiny, right? So yeah, that's how you make a great creative. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the ad setup. We're going to finish the setup. And I'm also going to show you then the long-term strategy and okay, so now if we go back to our cold campaign, if you remember, we'll have 2 city tattoo work plus call to action ad. Then we'll have our 2 best performing reels, and then we'll have a carousel of our best work. So if we go back to the ad here, this is how we can set that up. So let's say this was number 1. This is city, call to action, right? And then this is number 2, city, call to action. Then number 3, so best performing, best reel 1, like A, and you could say with call to action. Then this could be number 4, best reel B with call to action. Now, once again, you could rename this. Let's say the reel is about something in particular. You could say, dragon reel B, etc. Okay, and then we'll just do one more as well. So quick duplicate here, and then this could be 5. Carousel best work, for example. And then just with the carousel, you just have to go here and change it from single image or video to carousel. Then you can add all of your images here one by one. So if you go add image cards, you can then go across, then you can organize them in order. So for example, I've just added these 2 images here just to show you what it looks like, but you can add them in and then you can reorganize them by pulling them up and down, etc. And that's how you can make your nice carousel. Okay, it doesn't really need a headline. You can leave that for the call to action button. Okay, that's just the difference when setting up a carousel, right? So you click from single image or video, you switch it to carousel, then you can upload your images here and you can reorganize them. And then once again, you have a preview on the left of how it looks, etc. Okay, so that is basically how you set up the cold DM ad from top to bottom with the creatives I recommend. Once again, all you have to do is come in here, You've made that creative. You come in here to edit media. You can remove this. You'll have nothing here, but then you add the video, you upload it, you select it, you go through the process as I showed you previously. And then what you do is you come back here and you publish it, and then it will launch. Okay. So that is how you create your short-term DM strategy to a cold audience. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the long-term strategy of paid advertising, as I've mentioned earlier in this course, which is running a cold ad, which is traffic, so people visiting your profile. And then over time, as you build more content and as your cold ad starts doing better and better, you start to run a retargeting ad, which sends people directly to your DMs or to your website form or whatever. Because once again, based on psychology, they have had the time to go from a stranger to consuming your content, to following you, to visiting your profile, to then once they get hit with a retargeting ad that is more direct about booking, they are warm, right? Therefore, you're going to get a cheaper cost per result. You're going to have to spend less money on ads because a retargeting ad only runs to people who already know who you are. Therefore, you can run it at a really low budget and hit everyone you need to hit very quickly. And they have had the time to make a informed opinion and decision of you. Therefore, you have a higher conversion rate, meaning that if you get 10 messages from a retargeting ad, you could book up to 5 or 6 or 7 of them in, which is amazing. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to disappear again. I don't know how the fuck to fix this, but when I go on the ads manager, but what we're going to do now is first of all, build the cold traffic campaign. Okay. Once again, that is an ad to strangers that is open, right? Open targeting that is bringing people to visit your profile. And then I'm also going to build the retargeting ad, which is an ad that goes straight to your DMs. Okay. The retargeting campaign is literally the same build as the emergency cold straight to DMs one. Instead, we're just going to add the retargeting audience as the only audience we want to send that to. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build our cold traffic campaign. So we're going to go to create, we're going to do traffic. Okay. And this is going to go manual traffic again. So manual. Okay. Basically, the only difference really between this setup and the other one is the campaign itself, which is traffic. Okay. So we're going to call this, for example, cold, right? IG profile visits, for example. And then you could say 2026 or whatever thing is February 2026, for example. Okay. So then ad set budget as like the other one. And then this is going to be called open targeting, right? And then we'll say like New York City, 10 miles. And then we can also write profile visits. Okay. So once again, just getting really clear on what it is. All right. So as you can see right now, the conversion location is message destination. So we want to change that to send traffic to an Instagram profile or Facebook or both. Okay. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to the C23 Labs Instagram profile. Okay. Then we're going to put the daily budget. So once again, if let's say you're spending a budget of $30 per day, that's your budget. Okay. Which I recommend. Long term, then this is going to be $25 and your retargeting ad is going to be $5 every day in perpetuity, right? And you won't have to change that much, as I've mentioned before, which we'll get into. Okay. So then we're going to have the same setup and stuff here. Okay. So for example, New York City. Right. 10 miles. Once again, remember, you can always increase the radius over time. If you have if you're in a small city, I would just do the whole city. Okay. But for someone like in New York, in Manhattan or something, obviously the closer the better. And there's millions of people in that circle. All right. Then Advantage Plus audience, you can keep that on again. Remember, open targeting, we're just really letting the algorithm do its thing. The other thing as well then is if you have a lot of content and you have a decent following, and you have clients, you're probably going straight to this long-term strategy, which is great, meaning that you don't really need to do any targeting. The algorithm already knows what type of people are attracted to you. And also the better your content is, the better your ads will be, because obviously we're going to turn your best ads your best content into ads here for this long-term strategy. So you can really leave this off here, just making sure you have the targeting done properly in terms of the location. And then we're going to go to manual placements here again. And once again, as I mentioned, you want to just put the placements on where people actually use Instagram, which is where people scroll, which is the feed, their stories, and the reels. Okay, so everything else can go off, like the other one: Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, Profile Reels, Instagram Stories, Instagram Reels, and then Instagram feed, Facebook feed off, this one off. Okay, boom. So that's everything, right? It's the exact same as the cold emergency ad that you've seen if you watch that, but the difference is that it's a traffic campaign, so it's sending people to your profile. Okay, so we're not optimizing to get as many messages as possible just yet. We're optimizing for as many people to view and maybe follow us and check out more of our content, right? Because you'll also have all this great content now from this course to then make an opinion, build up trust with you, and then when they get hit with the retargeting ad later on, they're ready to buy, and they're a great message as well because they are warm. Okay, so then when we're setting up the ad, what I recommend for your cold traffic ads, so visit Instagram profile visit ads, as mentioned in the previous video, is your 4 best performing reels. And you can also test like a carousel or your introduction video, like a retargeting ad, etc. The main thing is this whole purpose is to get more people to visit and follow you. Okay, so in essence, it actually has the same purpose as a viral piece of content or a piece of content in general. Okay, now the other thing though is because you're paying for this attention, right? You're renting this attention. I really like to put in connection content in here too, because because you're guaranteed to get views, right, on this because you're paying. Therefore, you don't have to only use viral content because it needs to get views. No, you can use connection content here. So for your 4 best performing reels, I would use 2 of your best viral and 2 of your best connection, right? Put them in here, and then 1 other of your choice. You can make a carousel of your work. You could make the introduction video like with the retargeting ad, which we've spoken about. Okay, but that's what I would do as your first creative test here with your open targeting. Okay, then you're just going to name it. So for example, you could say viral reel 1. Then you're going to put the video in here again. Okay, so I'm just going to put one of the videos in. This is just a random video of ours, but that's not the point. And then once again, you can say tattoo artist or whatever you are, like microrealism tattoo artist based in Brooklyn, New York. Check out more of my work. It's doing its thing again. Check out more of my work and art on my profile, right? So that's your call to action. You're just telling people to check out more, right? There's no pressure, etc. That's the whole goal of this ad. Okay, then you want to obviously check the advanced preview again, as I mentioned, right? If it looks weird on the feed and it looks good on the store, or vice versa, you want to obviously edit the formatting to suit that placement. And then what you can do is change the placement in the same place as last time. Okay, so then you'll see the call to action is visit profile. Okay, so that's your visit profile, and that's pretty much that ad, right? So it's the same setup. Once again, setting up the ads is super, super easy. You just whack it on open targeting. You let the algorithm learn. What you need to put a lot of effort into is your content, hence your ad. Okay, especially for this long-term strategy, you want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Your best performing content is always going to be your best performing ad. Okay, as I've mentioned before, if you think about it, if there's a handful of great clients out there in New York, for example, right now who are scrolling, and the only difference between them and the people who've already paid and bought from you, okay, the only difference between you and them and your clients is that they don't know who you are. Therefore, whatever your current paying clients resonate with the most in your content is also going to be the content that strangers who are also potential ideal clients are going to resonate with the most too. Does that make sense? So your best performing content with your favorite clients is also going to be your best performing content in your ads, because we're trying to attract more of your favorite clients who simply just don't know you exist yet. Okay, so then once again, what you're going to do is you're going to duplicate this, right? So we'll duplicate this 4 times. Then all you have to do is come in here, is rename them and put those videos in. So viral reel 2, for example, this could be connection reel 1. Right, and I would obviously rename these with the actual context of that video as well, so you really know. So for example, let's say you did a video on someone's memorial piece of their grandmother, right? You could write this grandmother reel to connection, and then you could have like C for connection or whatever, okay? And then last one here, this could be introduction video as well, right? Or it could be carousel, whatever, okay? But just do one of your choice as well. Okay, once again, I don't need to spoon feed you everything. You should fundamentally understand this now. If you don't, obviously keep watching it. But the main thing is, get creative, make a video of your own, see how it does, give it a go, give it a test, okay? Use your brand identity, use your creativity and make something. And once again, the easiest thing you can do if you want to just test 4 is just take your best 4 performing reels and just whack them in. You don't even need to put a call to action on them or anything like that just yet, because we can see the results and if it worked or not in terms of the click-through rate, which I'll get into after. In terms of you saying like, hey, visit my profile now at the end of the video, you might not even need to say that if you have a high click-through rate, right? Which is going to come from the quality and interest from the video. But for now, I'm going to write introduction video. Okay, so all you have to do then is in these 4 is just swap out the ad, right, for all the other 5 ads that you've made, the other 4 ads. Once again, as well, turn multi-advertiser ads off. Okay, this means that your ad is going to be running alongside other tattoo ads. So make sure that's off, swap out the videos, then you're ready to go. That's literally the profile visits ad, okay? In the later on in this course, I'm going to talk about how to optimize and do new tests, etc. But that's what you need to get started with your cold Instagram ad, okay, to visit profile. And then you would just go back here, you could just publish, and then that would launch, okay? So I just realized I just made that ad on a different ad account. The C23 Labs was actually using my Aurelius Grow account, but that's fine. So you would make that ad, okay? That would be cold traffic. And then you would make as well a retargeting ad as well, a retargeting campaign. Now, once again, if we go back to the very first campaign you made, which is the emergency one, the setup is as follows, right? It's a engagement campaign. It's right now it's open targeting, okay? And then we've set up the videos, right? So the only difference you'd have to make to this, right? If I just do this now, is I would duplicate this, okay? Duplicate. And then this is going to be engagement, right? Retargeting DMs, okay? Really important, okay? I would even just put the RT at the top there so you know. And the only difference we'd have to make then is number 1, the video. So let's say you made an introduction video, as I've mentioned before, which would be a great video to do. I could just get rid of all these other ones. Right, I'd have my introduction, and then I could even swap this one out for introduction variation 2 if you've made 2, right, which I've explained in the previous video on what makes a great creative, okay? Then the only difference I have to do here is I'm going to change this to retargeting. And then if I come in to my targeting here, I go to search existing audiences. I look up Instagram engagers. As you can see, this is my retargeting audience as we've built before. And then what I do is I've added that in, and then it says here, advantage plus custom audience, reach people beyond your custom audience when it's likely to improve. No, we only want to run this to people who've engaged with our profile, okay? So now you've just changed this ad from an open targeting ad, right? That's sending people to DMs, right? So strangers to DMs, to only people who've heard about you before here. That's the only difference. Still in New York, still open, genders, age, etc. And same placements. And then all you have to do is pop in the other variation of the introduction video, for example. And then as well, you can see we still want to use this same template in terms of the actual DM conversations, right? Once again, you can preview that in your messenger, but what happens is they click on the ad. Once again, if we go back to the ad, it says send message. But once again, these are retargeting people. So these are people who already know who you are. So they're warm. So the quality of this conversation is going to be much better. And then you're going to see, this is, hey, let me fix that. Hey, Oisin, how can I help you? They're going to click one of these 2 options. Once again, you can change these to your liking. I've already explained what's good and what's bad. And then you're going to take over the conversation from there. And then in the next part of this course, the final part of this whole course, we're going to talk about sales and how to actually navigate those type of conversations, right? But for example, you could say, hey, I'd like to discuss a tattoo idea I have. Amazing, John, I'm really glad to hear that. Or amazing, Machine, I'm really glad to hear that. Please tell me more about your idea, or can you tell me a little bit more about your idea, right? And then you're just into a conversation. And I'm going to show you, as I mentioned before, how to navigate that conversation into a sale later in this course, okay? So that is how you set up that's how you set up number one, your cold traffic ad, right? So an ad that is going to cold people, so strangers, open targeting, that's going to profile visits, right? People visiting your profile, following. Then they're consuming your content. And then over time, they get hit with this ad, which pushes them to actually start a conversation with you, okay? But at least they have consumed a lot of your content and have known who you are for a little while longer than 30 seconds to give you higher quality messages, okay? The other thing too, as well, that I actually forgot to do is you want to obviously change your budget, right? So remember, if our budget is $25 or if our budget is €30 a day or $30 a day, 25 on the cold visit profiles, 5 on the retargeting. The whole point as well is you don't have to touch this retargeting then, okay? If your video is really well made, okay, once again, if you have a video that you've made and you want feedback on it, just send it to me on Instagram. I'm happy to help you guys once. And then the other thing then is when you're running this retargeting ad, the only way that this ad will stop working is if the frequency goes up. The frequency, once again, being, if I go back here, is this number here, which is like how often, as you'll see here if I hover over it, how often someone has seen it, right? So the average number of times each account has seen your ad. So once the frequency is getting to like 3, 4, 5, it means that people are seeing the ad 5 times on average, which is a lot. But the way that you keep the frequency down is by building your retargeting audience, as I've mentioned before, right? So the more content you're making, the higher performing your cold advertisements are, the bigger your retargeting audience is growing, because on average you have more people engaging with your content. Therefore, your retargeting ad never runs out, never fades, never burns out, because you're consistently keeping the audience fresh and growing, And then all you have to do is, which we'll get into in the next video, is do testing on the open targeting ad, on the cold ad to your profile, testing new reels. If you've had a reel that bangs, adding it as an ad. And then once you get to a certain metric or a certain results on your ad, on the cold ad as well, you can just run that ad, live your life, and now you have a cold ad that's running that is consistently getting you new profile visits and followers, and then a retargeting ad that is consistently getting you new messages every single day, right? And for example, if your retargeting audience is growing quite fast, which it will be if you're making content and your profile is growing, you can then raise this budget to maybe $10. And then if you're getting an average cost per message of $5, that means you're getting 2 warm, highly qualified messages every single day, every single month from this setup, right? So now you have a machine that works forever, okay? You're getting 60 messages a month. Half of them could book, meaning you're getting 30 new clients a month just from this setup, right? So that is in essence how you set up the long-term strategy. Once again, it's a cold ad, so an ad to strangers that's open targeting in your area, that is running your best performing reels, that is visiting to your profile. Then you've got a retargeting audience that is more of a direct kind of infomercial type, hey, I'm this, I do this, la, la, la. And that video is sending straight to your DMs, and you're booking people through there, okay? But it acts in accordance with human nature, because people need time, information, trust, relatability to make a decision like this. So the other great thing as well then is, if it takes 6 months for someone to realize they're ready, if your retargeting ad is running, then in 6 months' time, they're going to see that retargeting ad again, right? They might see it once a week, and then it doesn't matter if they're ready today or tomorrow or in 6 months, because the retargeting ad is consistently running, they're always going to be reminded that you're taking bookings, and then you can book them in, okay? And that is how you set up the long-term strategy. Okay, then once again, with your creatives for the long-term strategy, remember with cold traffic, we're going to have 5 different types of creatives and retargeting. So if we go back to the open targeting, if we go back to the, for example, first of all, the retargeting ad, okay, you've got your introduction, 1 video. So this could be number 1 here. And then once again, it's optional if you want to have a variation, but let's say to start you don't, so you could delete this. You just have 1 variation here, okay, which is this one we're talking about, all right? And then if we go to your long-term cold traffic profile visit strategy, okay, remember, we can have viral reel, connection, introduction video. Once again, we just want to use options of these 5, okay? City, introduction, carousel. So once again, this could be like viral video 1, 2, connection reel 1. And then let's say you're only using one connection reel. This could be carousel, best work. Okay. And then once again, as you saw previously, all you have to do is come in here. You need to, for carousel, you need to change the carousel, upload the photos. But then for the videos, you just come in here. This will be empty. You add media, add video, and add it there. And then you come back to the ad set, publish, and then make sure as well it's published at the campaign level here as well. And it should say processing and then learning. And that's how you know it's live. Okay. So that's how you set up the long-term strategy, including the creatives, as I've mentioned. Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to track your data properly, your metrics from your ads, how to then look at those metrics and know what you need to change, how to optimize then your ads. When we say optimize, it means to improve your ads basically based on the numbers, and then how to eventually scale your ads too if you want to do that, which is where you spend more money every day because they're working so well. Okay, so tracking metrics and optimizing. Rule number 1 is you need to know your numbers. Okay, this is the single biggest mistake I see tattoo artists make, is that they focus way too much on the technicalities, on the ads, on the results on the ad, but they don't even know their numbers, right? They don't even know how many clients they got. They don't know exactly how much each client was worth, how much they spent. They don't know out of how many messages did one become a client, etc. You really, really need to know your numbers, because the numbers are going to show you exactly what you actually do need to fix rather than what you feel you need to fix. Okay, because your ads might be working incredibly well, it's actually your sales process that's not working well. Or you might think your ads are working extremely well, but it's actually your sales process that's working extremely well and your ads are not doing great at all. Okay, so what I have here to track your numbers, and what I'm going to show you now, is a Google Sheet with all the numbers you need. And I'll show you how to find those numbers and put them in and read those numbers as well. Once again, this Google Sheet will be in the first link in the description in the booklet. Okay, so if we go to this link, it's going to look a little bit, let me move myself up here maybe. It's going to look a little bit intimidating to start, but I promise you it's very, very simple. Now there's 2 parts of the sheet, right? There's the short-term strategy, if that's what you're doing, and then there's the long-term strategy as well, if that's what you're doing, which I'll explain the difference here in a second. Okay, and then there's 2 other parts of the sheet here. There's the booking stats, which is where you're going to put in the details of every consultation you book, and every outcome of that consultation here on the right here. Okay, which I'll get into as well. And then we've got an FAQ sheet as well, which is where you're going to write the most common objections or frequently asked questions you keep getting from clients. And then you're going to write the best possible answer for there, so that you can build up a template of really good responses for future messages, meaning that your conversion rate gets higher, right? Because you're better at replying. Okay, so if we go back to the short-term strategy, for example, so on the blue here, you have everything to do with the ad itself, and then on the red you have everything to do with your sales process. Okay, so for example, if you look at ad spend, impressions, clicks, you're going to get all these numbers from the ads manager, which I'm going to show you. In fact, I'm going to show you now, and I'm going to disappear for the rest of the video, I think. Yeah, I am. Okay, so for example, this is a short-term ad that we've been running for quite a while. As you can see, we've spent a lot of money over the last while, like I think nearly 20,000. But for example, with the ad spend, let's say if we go to yesterday, for example, you can see our ad spend was 28.72, our clicks was 14, and our impressions was 2277. Okay, so I would put that in here, right? $28, 2277, and 14. Okay, so that's what your numbers in blue are. And then the leads as well is the number of messages you got from that ad as well. So if you're in Europe, once again, there is GDPR guidelines. So just so you guys understand, the reason that a lot of you in Europe might not see how many messages you actually got from an ad if you're running this type of ad is because there's privacy concerns in Europe for some reason. So you actually don't get those numbers. So you have to manually track them. Okay. But if you're in the US or Canada or other countries, you're going to get that number. If we go back here to this account, you can see they got 3 messages, right? Results. So that's the number you're going to put there. Okay. And then the initial messages is actually the number of messages that actually came into your DMs. So the reason this is different is because sometimes Facebook is wrong for whatever reason. Sometimes it says, oh, you got 3 DMs today, right? Like it said today for that person. But you actually only see 2, or you see 4, or you see 5. So the main thing is we want to look at the disparity between what Facebook is saying to what you're actually getting, okay? And then the replies is going to be the number of replies that you actually get from these people. So for example, let's say you got 3 leads. It says you got 3 leads on Facebook. You actually got 2 people that came into your DMs. Okay. Then out of those 2 people, one of them replied to your next message. So let's say you say, I want to book a tattoo. That you reply, hey, amazing. What type of tattoo do you want? And then one of them never replies, and then one of them does reply. You're going to put that reply there because we want to know what the reply rate is of your leads are too, right? Because you could get 100 messages, but if no one replies after the first message, then that's not worth anything either. Okay. Then out of the people you reply, out of the people who reply to you, how many of them did you actually book a consultation with, right? If you're doing larger pieces, I highly recommend you should be booking consultations, especially if you need clients, right? You should be talking to as many people as possible. Once again, we're going to cover all of this in the sales part of the course, which is next. But this is going to be the amount of consults you actually booked from these people that day. Okay. Then shows is if you had any consultations booked for that day, how many of them showed up, right? And then how many new clients did you get? Okay. So you're going to fill this sheet out religiously every day. The reason for that is if you leave it too long, it's going to be very hard to like catch up, and it's going to be very hard for you to figure out, oh, which person replied here, which person replied there. I'm just going to explain this in a little bit more depth as well, because this is super important. But let's say you got 3 messages that day, you got 3 this day, and you got 3 this day. Okay. And on this day, 2 of these 3 people replied. 2 of these 3 people replied this day. And then you got 4 replies this day, right? You might be thinking, this makes no sense. If I got 3 messages, how could I get 4 replies? The point is, let's say out of these 3 people, 2 replied, but then 2 days later, one of these guys was just off their phone and say, hey, sorry, I've been off my phone for 2 days. And then they reply. You just track how many people replied for the first time ever, right? So remember, on the ad, it says, hey, I would love to discuss an idea. And then you say, sure, no problem. What can I do for you? Like, tell me about your idea. And then they reply, hey, this is my idea. When someone replies, hey, this is my idea for the first time, you just count it on that day. When you look at it day by day, sometimes it's going to make no sense, right? 3 and then 4, it doesn't make any sense. But when you look at it at the bottom here, right, it's always going to make sense. So just know that as well. Sometimes when you look at the numbers day by day, it's not going to add up evenly, but when you look down here, it will. Okay. For example, 2 messages, 4 replies. Let's say I booked no consults that day, and then I booked no consults this day, right? I'm still in talks with all 8 of these people, and then I could book like 8 consults this day, right? Once again, makes no sense, but you have to understand that you've been talking to these 8 people for a couple of days, and then you book them all on the same day, maybe, or maybe you book 1 here and 7 here, etc. Okay. So the main thing is you need to remember that don't allow yourself to be confused when it makes no sense, right? 3, then 4, then 7. It should only be going down, right? But it makes sense here. Okay. The numbers add up here. So let's say you had 4 replies, you booked 2 consults this day, you booked 2 consults that day, right? Then you'd have no shows here, and then maybe you have no shows here, and you'd also have no shows here, right? Maybe because then maybe let's say you booked all 4 of those consultations for this day, then you have 4 shows here, but you booked no consultation, you got no messages this day on the ad. So once again, 0004 makes no sense. Down here it does. Just kind of explaining this to you a little bit more in depth so you understand, right? What you're doing is you're putting in the numbers of what happened that day. So how many people did you book that day for a consultation? Doesn't matter if they became a lead a week ago. when did you book them in? And then how many people showed up for the consultation that they had on that day? So if you had 3 consultations booked for that day, then maybe you booked a week ago. That's what you're counting, okay? Because once again, we're looking at it on a bi-weekly and monthly basis, okay? And then new clients is how many new clients you actually got that day, right? So let's say out of those 4 consultations, 2 of them actually booked a tattoo. And then this is really important here as well, is these total sales is not the total amount that the tattoo is worth. It is the total amount of money you collected on that day, okay? So for example, if you had 2 new clients, you would put, for example, the 2 deposits you got. So let's say you take $400 for a deposit, you would put 800 here, okay? And then let's say these 2 guys who put a deposit down, they come and get tattooed like later in the month, right? And let's say the remaining tattoo is 1,000, okay? Well, then you'd put the 2,000 here, all right? And actually this would be 0, okay? So if you can see, right, it's like new clients 2, that's their deposit, and then that's when they actually got tattooed that day, right? If that makes sense. Once again, you're only counting the total amount of money you collected, because we need to know the numbers of how much you're spending compared to how much you're making, right? We can't assume that, like we can't put down 2,800 and assume, because things happen, right? People cancel, people reschedule, etc. We need to know exactly what your ROAS is, right? Because for example, let's say we spent $100 on ads that day, $100 on this day, and then finally on this day. I think that's where we are over here. Yeah. Okay. So you can see we spent $400. We have made $2,800 so far. Okay. And you can see the return on ad spend at the bottom is 7. Okay. At the moment. So we have a 7 ROAS. We spent $400. We've made 2,800, right? 28 divided by 4 is 7. That's why it's a ROAS of 7, right? Return on ad spend, which I'll get into. Okay. The main thing is we need to know these numbers to make rational decisions based on the stats, okay, rather than our feelings. Because you might be thinking, oh, the ads aren't working, but then when you look at these numbers, you're like, holy fuck, they're working really well, okay, which has happened before, which I'm going to get into as well, okay. So that is the first sheet that you should be filling out. This is for the short-term strategy. The only difference between the short-term and the long-term strategy is I've gotten rid of the impressions and clicks, because it's not as important. We can look at the click-through rate and stuff like that on the ad itself, which I'll get into. But for the long-term strategy, because you're going to be running a cold traffic ad and a retargeting ad, you need to add all the ad spend together. So like, let's say you spent, remember, you're spending $25 a day on the cold traffic ad, so to visit your profile, and then you're spending another $5 a day on the retargeting ads, right? So that would be 30, but you're looking at 2 campaigns that are running at the same time, okay? So if you put in your impressions and clicks, it's going to say, oh, maybe you have a 1% click-through rate, but maybe your click-through rate on retargeting is 4, and maybe your click-through rate on your cold ad is like 0.25, so the average is 1. So this is actually counterintuitive for us to have that, because it will confuse you. So all you put is into your ad spend, the amount of leads that you got that day, initial messages, and it's the same thing again, okay? But you're adding up the total amount you spent on all of your campaigns, right? On the long-term strategy, your cold traffic to visit profile and your retargeting, okay? Because once again, we need to know how much did you spend total that whole day, no matter how many ads you're running, and then how much sales did we get, okay? When you fill this out religiously, it's going to be very easy for you to understand what you need to fix, right? I'll give you an example as well here. If we've spent, just to make this easy, say we spent $1,000. We got 20,000 impressions, or let's say 50,000 impressions. We got 1,000 clicks or 100 clicks. We got 50 leads. It says we got 50 leads on Facebook. We actually see 40 messages came in, right? Then out of those 40 messages, 35 people replied. Out of those 35 people who replied, let's say 10 of them booked a consultation, okay? And then we had, out of those 10 people, let's say we had 4 people show up for the consultation, and then we booked 2 clients, right? Or let's say 6 people showed up for the consultation and we booked 2 clients in, okay? And then we collected $800 that day, all right? So if we look at the numbers here, I'm going to get rid of these other ones. Okay, so you can now see the total numbers of everything in your sales and marketing process, right? So we spent $1,000. Our CPM is $20. Our click-through rate is 0.2%, which is super low, which I'll get into. Then our cost per lead is $20, right? Our reply rate is 87.5%. Okay. Our booking rate is 29%. Our show rate is 60%. Our close rate is 33%, right? So we can see the total numbers. So for example, the obvious things that we don't need to fix are the reply rate, right? So we're obviously replying in a quick manner. Obviously the setup of the ad, which containing the first questions we ask the people are working, right? Because we have a high reply rate. Also, the way that we're booking consultations and giving people reminders is obviously working, because our show rate is, 60%. Definitely could be better. But what I'm looking at is, what are the lowest numbers? And then secondly, what is the easiest thing I can fix, right? For example, the booking rate is 29%. That's low enough. So I'm thinking, like, why out of the 35 people that message me, why am I only booking 10? So I could consider how I could get that to maybe 11 or 12, right? My close rate is 33%, meaning that I'm only closing 1 out of 3 people. So maybe I could take a look at my consultation calls and see how I could improve them. But the easiest thing we could fix is the click-through rate, right? Which is the percentage of people who are actually clicking on the ad or clicking into your messages from the ad. This is 0.2. We want this to be like 2, right? So we want to 10x this. The way that we do that is by improving the hook and the call to action, which I'm going to get into now. But the whole point of this sheet, in essence, and we're going to go back to this sheet at the end of this video once you're kind of more informed and everything, and show you more numbers again, is to understand exactly what the biggest problem or bottleneck, as we say in business, is in your business, right? And what is the lowest number that is also the easiest to fix, right? In this example, it would be the click-through rate. It would be a couple of quick changes in the video. Then it would be the booking rate. Then it would be the close rate, right? Because the easiest thing you could do is fix a video and an ad. The second easiest thing is figure out where you're losing, 25 messages. Maybe you're not replying fast enough. And then the third easiest is looking at your consultations, watching them, and then improving your sales skills, right? It's a big effort, okay? So going back to this sheet now, okay? Fill the sheet out every day. Set an alarm, whatever works for you, but do it daily, because if you leave it for a couple of days, it gets extremely hard to calculate everything. And most of you will stop filling it out then and end up right back where you are, okay? This is true. So if you want to change your situation, you need to change your actions, all right, guys? I know this is kind of goes against your whole every fiber of your being as an artist, of actually being organized, but you need to use a sheet like this, because otherwise you're never going to know your numbers, and then you're just going to be purely making decisions based on emotion, which are most of the time going to be wrong, okay? So on that note, optimizing an ad as well, okay? When I say optimizing, it's like we're looking at the tests that we've been doing, right? We're running an ad with 5 different creatives. Now we're going to figure out, okay, which ones can I turn off? Which ones can I spend more on, etc. That's what I mean by optimizing. All right. So spend versus time. I've already mentioned this before. I forget. DMs aren't tracked in Europe due to GDPR privacy guidelines. Okay, so you'll need to track this manually yourself. What that means is here in your leads and initial messages, it's just going to be the same number for you, because you don't get a number from Facebook for this. Okay. Going back. Sorry. So optimization is about data volume, not time. Okay, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is Meta doesn't optimize on a timer, it optimizes on data. So most of you think, okay, I need to wait 3 days or I need to wait 7 days to make a change, right? Or I should make a change every day. It's not about the time. It's not about the amount of days that have passed when it comes to changing your ads. It's about the amount of money that you have spent. Okay, think about it this way. If you spend $30 a day, you'll get learning data slowly over a week or two, right? But if you spend $1,000 a day, you'll get the same learning data in like 1 day, okay? So think about it. If you spend $30 a day, it would take you over a month to get the same amount of data as if you spent $1,000 a day, right? Because 30 by 30 is 900, 1,000 a day. So the whole point is, it's not about waiting for time. It's about waiting for a certain amount of money that you've spent, okay? For example, if you're spending $10 a day, and we want to get $200 worth of data to know what's working, what's not, that's going to take you 20 days. If you're spending $50 a day, it's going to take us 4 days. So in the latter example, we'd make a change after 4 days, right? Whereas in the first one, it would take 20 days for us to even bother making a change. Okay, so the main thing is, don't think of it as 7 days of learning, right? Think of it as $100 to $150. I'm going to go with $200 of learning spend for each ad set, okay? Remember, it's the amount of money you spent, not the a length of time that has gone past, okay? This is what's happening is some of you guys are spending $5 a day and changing it every day. It's like you have zero data, okay? You need to spend at least $150 to $200 on an ad set to know anything, okay? And that's being generous, right? I usually spend way more than that to learn, okay? Anyway, once you spend that much and the results are steady, you can then decide what's working, right? So let's say let's say your budget is $30 a day on your ad, okay? And I want you to spend, for example, $200. Then you could wait 7 days, right? You would have spent 210. You would see, okay, I've spent $210. It's clear that these 2 videos out of the 5 are doing the best. I can now confidently make a change on this ad. So I can turn the 3 losers off. I can scale the 2 winners, etc. Okay. So once you've spent that much and the results are steady, you can decide what's working. So remember, don't judge your ad by days, judge it by dollars spent. Okay. If multiple creatives are running, you'll spot a clear winner by then. By then, meaning when you spent a certain amount of dollars, right? $200, for example. Okay. So here's how you're going to optimize your ads. All right. And then I'm going to show you an example of me doing this too. Okay. But you have 5 ads running in one ad set, if you remember. Okay. I'm actually going to just draw it here for you again. Right. So remember, we've got the campaign, then we've got the ad sets, right? Which is like the targeting. So it's like where your radius is in your city, okay? Like New York, etc. Then you've got your ads, right? So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ads running, right? And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get the point, okay? So right now, the campaign is the objective, right? So let's say, for example, for the short-term strategy or the long-term, this is your cold, right? You're spending $30 a day, okay? And now we've waited 7 days and we've spent $210, okay? So we can now see, okay, ad 1 is doing really well and ad 3 is doing really well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn off the losers, right? Ad 2, 4, and 5, which is what I'm saying here in this video, okay? So you're going to run $200 in ad spend. You have 5 ads in the one ad set, okay? Then you're going to turn off the 3 losers. So now all the budget is going to the winners, right? All of this $30 is now only being spent on these 2 ones, okay? And continuing on, sorry, going back. Okay, so now if you want to scale, you can then duplicate the ad set with just the 2 winners, raise the budget by 25%. If it hits the same result as the last pair, turn the old ad set off. And if it doesn't, turn the new one off. So let me show you what this means, okay? So this is an ad set, right? This is a set of ads together. We've got this 5. Right now, this ad set now is only running with the 2 winners, right? We've turned the other 3 off. Now, the easiest thing to do, if you want to scale, let's say we want to spend more money, is remember, we can't edit this exact ad here, okay? The reason is because it will fuck up the algorithm, and you never want to edit a performing ad, because if you raise the budget, for example, directly on this ad from 30 to 40, number one, you're going to lose that data. You'll never know that it used to be running at $30. But number two, if it stops working when you raise the budget, you can never go back to how good it was, right? If you lower the budget back down to 30, there's no guarantee that it's going to go back to the results you got. So what we do is we duplicate it, right? We copy paste. So what I'm going to do in my ads manager is I'm going to copy this ad set. I'm going to paste it again. Okay. So ad set. And then I'm going to remove the ad 2, 3, and 4 before I even launch it. So now I just have ad 1 here, and I have ad 3 that was working. Okay. And then on this second ad set, I can raise the budget, right? Let's say to $40. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these side by side. So yes, I'm spending more money temporarily, but that's how it works when you're scaling. Okay. I'm not going to turn this one off. I'm going to run this one for a couple of days, right? So $40. Let's say we run it for 4 days. Okay. So I spend $160. If the results of these two things here, okay, these two ads here equal these ones, amazing. We can turn this one off, and now we still have those same 2 ads running, but just at more money, which is what we've wanted. The second option is if we scale these 2 ads and they actually start performing really, really badly after 4 days as well, at least we still have this ad running, so we can then turn this one off and then we have this one running. Okay, so we haven't, at least we don't shoot ourselves in the foot and don't have any winning ads. I'm going to show you once again how this looks in the ads manager in a second. I'm just explaining the theory of it. Okay, so when I say here, if you want to scale, duplicate the ad set with just the 2 winners in the ad set. Okay, raise the budget by 25%. The reason is if you double the budget too fast, sometimes the ad goes into learning mode again and it can fuck everything up. So just raise the budget incrementally, so 25% or every $10 or whatever. If it hits the same result as the last pair, as I just showed you, you can turn the original ad set off, the old one off. Okay, if it doesn't, if the the new winner ad set that you've just duplicated doesn't perform, you can turn the new one off, and at least you still have the old one at $30 running. Okay, scale winners. Then when you have new creatives, create a new ad set with 5 new tests and repeat. Okay, so now you've duplicated these 2 winners, you're scaling them, amazing. And then what you can do is live your life, be an artist, create content, and then in 4 weeks to 6 weeks time, you'll have new creatives from all the content you've been making, and then you can do another test batch. Okay, and repeat. That's basically how you optimize your cold ads. It doesn't matter if it's the short-term strategy or the long-term, it's the same philosophy. Okay, you do a test with 5 ad sets. The only difference is going to be when you're looking at the results in a cold DM ad and a cold traffic ad, right? Short term and long term. The results on the short term is going to say how, like, cost per message, and the results on the long term is just going to say cost per profile visit, right? So you're just basing you're basing what you turn off and what you turn on based on the results of each thing. Okay, but it's the same philosophy, it's the same process. Okay, the only difference is going to be where you look at the cost per result, because the result on a short-term ad is obviously how many messages you got and what the cost per message is, because that's the campaign strategy, right? It's an engagement campaign. With the cold ad, the cost per result is how much did you spend to get one profile visit. So like on the first short-term ad, like I showed you in this one, it's like the cost per message, for example, yesterday was $9. In a cold traffic ad, it's going to be like cost per profile visit, or is going to be like 10 cents, so that's the only difference. All right. So going back here, sometimes the algorithm just liked the delivery conditions of the old ad set. So if you're thinking like, when I duplicate and scale and then the 2 winner ads don't work as well, why does that happen? Sometimes you just get lucky, right? You just hit the algorithm in the right spot with the original ad that was running at $30. That's why you want to keep it on, because if the other one fucks up, then at least you still have that. Okay, and this is called parallel scaling. So you're comparing a new scale version to an old steady performer. Okay, and then once again, if the duplicate, the new scale version, performs the same or better, you pause the old steady performer, right? And then you let the scaled ad take over. If it performs worse, you can kill the duplicate, so turn that off, keep the originals, and scale gradually instead. Okay, so when an ad dips after scaling, meaning when you duplicate this, okay, here, when you duplicate this and for the first like 2 days, it's getting terrible results, and then on the 3rd day, it goes equal. What's happening there is, it doesn't mean it's broken, right? It just means Meta's learning again at a higher speed. So keep your old one running for a few days, test the duplicate, and only kill when when you've spent a certain amount of money and it still hasn't performed. All right. And the reason that the performance can drop after you scale is the new ad set is starting a fresh learning phase, right? So Meta is treating it as new data very briefly. And then the CPM, so the cost per impression, can spike temporarily while Meta retests where to show it. All right, CPM is how much you have to spend to get 1,000 views. Okay, if you think about it this way, if your CPM is $10, you're spending $10 to get 1,000 views. If your CPM is $20, you're spending $20 to get that same 1,000 views. So CPM is super important too, because you might have an ad that's doing really, really well, but the CPM is so high that it doesn't even make sense, right? Because you have another ad that's getting 4 times as many views on it for the same amount of money. Okay, which I'm going to show you in the actual ads manager as well. Okay, and then the other thing too is optimizing doesn't mean tweaking the ads every day or every week, right? And eventually every month. It means making decisions based on data, not emotion, right? Or the whole point of this is to get to a point where you don't even have to touch the ads. That's the whole point, right? And most of you go in, I've spoken to a lot of you, you go in, you change the ad just for the sake of it, or because you haven't changed something in a while. But the whole point is you don't touch something that's working. Okay, so if I show you an example, this is an ad account of one of my clients. I'm obviously going to blur out their name and stuff, but you can see if we go to maximum, we've been running this ad for I think 2 years, the guts of 2 years. But you can see here that this campaign that we've been running, which is actually the short-term strategy, but it performed so well initially. that we just have never changed the long term, and it actually suits him getting the messages. That's what he said. So you can see in the last year and a half or 2 years or so, whatever it's been, we've spent nearly $20,000, and we're still consistently, since the start, getting an average cost per message of $5, right? And he's really good at talking to the clients. So like 1 in every 4 messages he's booking in. So he's getting, a couple $100 for $20 every time, and he's super happy. Okay. The reason we haven't like super scaled these ads is because he doesn't have the time to talk to all these people, and it's getting such good results that we've never had to spend more than $30 a day. Okay. But if we were smart and we had like a team, and if this was for like a tattoo studio, maybe definitely would be spending more. Okay. But you can see here, if I actually go into the ad sets now, you can see all the changes, like all the little tests we've done over time. So that's why it's really important to name them, because you need to know what they were. So you can see this 100, 100, 100, 200, 200. And the reason I want to show you this as well is to show you how you'll get to a point where you're running a set of ads that keep performing, and every new test you do is not doing that as well. Okay. As you can see here, the actual current ad we're running was launched by us in January 2025. All right. So that's over a year now. This is right now, it's the 12th of February. So my point is, you can see in November 25, we did another test as well. And I ran it for a couple $100, didn't perform, never went down. So I turned it off. And I've done this a couple of times in the last year. My point is, we're at a point now where we're like, okay, well, January 25, whatever those set of ads were, was the best set of ads. And we haven't beat that in a year. Okay. And we'll do another test in a while, but he's happy out. I'm happy out. The main thing is, I want to show you an example of like, you can get to a point where you'll make such good ads that every new test you do won't even come close. Okay. And you can also see as well, we had a generational run of messages coming in for $3, $4, $3, $4, $4. The unfortunate issue there is his tattoos actually got so much better, so we couldn't use those videos anymore. And obviously then, due to inflation and stuff like that, and prices rising and everything, the cost per message is now sitting around 8, 6, but he's still getting, he still has a really good ROAS, right? Return on ad spend. That's the most important thing. Sometimes your cost per message would double, but if you're still consistently booking people in, you're still making a great profit. That's why you need to know your numbers here on this sheet. Okay. So I want to just show you an example there of a short-term ad that we've been running for the guts of 2 years. We've done many, many tests. And in January 2025, we obviously hit the sweet spot of the ads, because every test we've done since then, so in the last year, has not come close. Okay. So that's an example of like all the little ads. Like, let's say we started with this one, we would then duplicate it, turn off the losers, scale it. Okay, duplicate it, turn off the losers, scale it, right? You can see like started with 5, then 10, then 15, then 25, then 30. It's like we've incrementally gone up. Okay. So for example, let's say I wanted to scale this ad. Okay. This one's doing great. I would come in here, I'd look at the videos, right? So I'll take like 3 of them just to give you enough videos to see. Okay. So let's say these were all in the same one. Okay. I'd look at the results. Okay. $22, 10, 10, 8, 7. All right. So these 3 are shit. Let's turn these 3 off. Okay. These 2 are the best. So let me go back then to the ad set itself. Right. So let's say they're all in this one. Then I would just duplicate here. Okay. Duplicate with the original setup. And I'll actually do it now in front of you. Right. And then I come back. I change the budget. So I want to scale it. Let's go to 40. Okay, and then I would save the draft, and then I would actually publish that. I'm not going to publish it now, but then I could rename this as well. Open targeting January 25 winners, right? And then we could see, okay, so this one's running at 40, this one's running at 30. If this one at 40 hits the same results, so like a cost per message of 8 or below, then I can turn this one off, and I have the same ad that's running, but we're spending $10 more, which is great, because that's what we've wanted to, because it's working, so we want to spend more. Or if this one goes to shit and it gets like a result of $22, like this one here, at least I can just turn this one off, and then I still have this current winner perform, or this current original ad set running, okay, at $30. So that is an example of how you scale and optimize a short-term ad set. It's the same with a cold traffic, which I'll get into as well. Okay, so going back here. All right. So good baseline metrics for ads. This is another important thing to understand. Okay. The first thing is your click-through rate. So your click-through rate is what percentage of people actually clicked onto the call to action button from your ad, right? There's a difference between click-through rate all, so clicks all, and link click-through rate, okay? So what we're talking about when I say click-through rate, I'm talking about link click-through rate actually. And I'll actually put LCTR just to not confuse you. Okay, the difference is, if I go back here, the CTR all is what percentage of people clicked on the ad whatsoever. So they could have liked it, they could have opened the caption more, they could have saved it, they could have shared it. That is a click, okay? What we're specifically looking at is our link click-through rate, right? Is our CTR, okay? So it's the percentage of people that actually clicked on the, like, for example, send message button or visit profile button. As you can see, I'm actually going to change these ads out because it's so low. He's just been getting such great results in terms of his return on ad spend. We haven't really worried too much, but that's stupid low, as I'll show you now as well. Okay, so continuing back though, that's what the difference between your link click-through rate is, okay? So your CTR all is any click that's ever happened on the ad. Then your CTR, so your link click-through rate, is the percentage of people that are actually clicking on. And we actually want this to be, in an ideal world, at 2%. But I have the metrics here, okay? Anything less than 1% is pretty bad, right? You need to change something there completely. Anything above 1.5 is okay. It's solid. Anything above 2 is great, and then anything above 2.5% is incredible, okay? This is for your link click-through rate in particular, all right? And then when it comes to your CPM, so your cost per 1,000 impressions, that is this number here, right? So you can see here, we're spending $9 to get 1,000 views. You'll see in like New York and stuff like that, it's like $20. It's just all due to how much competition you have with advertising. All right, it varies depending on the location, but anyway, the good thing to know is the lower the better. So just take a look at your ads. If one has a significantly higher CPM than others, you could probably turn that off and repost it and try to fix that. Okay, then your frequency should be under 3. So the frequency, once again, is how often one person has seen your ad, right? So if we go to this ad, for example, you can see the frequency right now is 2. So on average, someone in this city has seen the ad twice, right? Which is low, okay? Once this gets to above 3, 3.5, etc., you need to change the ad soon, right? It's getting burnt out. People are getting used to seeing it. So anything under 3 is totally fine. Anything over 3, I would start to prepare new videos soon, okay? Then your ROAS, okay, which is your return on ad spend, is pre-expenses. So for example, if we go back to the sheet here, if I spend $1,000 and I made $3,000, that would mean I'd have a ROAS of 2, right? I spent 1,000, I made 3,000. My return on ad spend is 2x, okay? Because I made $2,000, all right? So that's pre-expenses. So let's say also you spend $1,000, then you also buy needles, you have to pay for rents, whatever. So then you know, after expenses, you might have a ROAS of 1, so you might have no ROAS, whatever. But I'll use an easier number here. So let's say spend 1,000, I made 5,000. My ROAS is 4, and then let's say after expenses, I actually made 3,000 profit. So then my return on investment would be 2. Okay, and that's the difference. Is your ROAS is literally just your return on your ad spend. Okay, this is pre-expenses. It's like how much did I spend on ads and how much money did I collect? Because that's the most important thing for your ads. Then for your business in general, your ROI, which is your return on investment, that's after expenses. Okay. And the reason it's so important to know these numbers is because you can then aggressively scale. Because the issue I see with most tattoo artists is they say, oh, well, look, I spent $300, but every time I raise the budget, I don't get as good results. But the issue is you're usually specifically talking about your return on ad spend or like your ROAS, but you're actually getting more profit, okay? An example here is if you spend $300 and you have a 10x return on ad spend, right? So you're 10xing your money. You have $3,000, right? You have $2,700 in profit, okay? But if you spend $1,500 and then it drops to a 5x return on ad spend, right? So it's half as good of a return. You're still making $6,000 profit. So you're still making a hell of a lot more profit, right? Because you spend $1,500, you collect $7,500 because it's a 5x ROAS, and you make more profit, okay? So the reason you need to know these numbers is because most of you guys are scared to go over this because every time it happens, your ROAS goes way down. But you have to understand you're making more money. You're making more profit. That's the whole point, okay? I can even show you the numbers here, right? Let me show you an example. I'll actually tell you a real life example of a client of mine that I had, okay? So he was spending $400 a month, and he was like, I'm not sure if my ads are doing so well. I said, okay, well, what are the numbers of the clients? So we did the maths, and he said he got 3 new clients, right? He said, oh, I only got 3 new clients. I said, how much did they spend each? Well, they spent $1,400 each. So I said, you're telling me that you spent $400 in a month and you made $4,200 at the end. He said, yeah. I said, so you're telling me you 9.5 extra money, basically. Like, where else could you do that? That would be like investing in Bitcoin in like 2016, 2015, 2014. Okay. My whole point, guys, is some of you guys have unbelievably insane results. You just don't even know it. Okay. So then I said to him, why would you not just double your budget? And the answer was because he didn't know. Okay. So I was saying to him, actually quadruple your budget. He's saying, are you sure? I said, yeah, well, obviously incrementally, but over time. Because imagine it this way, right? You're spending $400 and you're getting a 9.5x ROAS, right? Now, obviously, when you spend more money, your return on ad spend goes down, okay, in terms of the number. But let's say you spend 1,600, and instead of, timesing this by 4 as well, so you get 12 clients, let's say you only get 8, okay? So it goes down, right? You don't get 3 clients for every $400 you spend. But each of those clients spends $1,400 as well. What's that? 8 by 4, 32, so that's 11,200. Okay, so you can see the ROAS has dropped to 6, right? So return on ad spend has dropped to 6. So the issue is artists say, oh, I'm getting less and less clients. The first 400 I got 3 clients, but then in the next 1,200 I spent, I only got 5. So it's not worth the extra money. Well, look, the thing is, you've spent 1,600, you've made 11,200, you've just made 9,600 in profit. Okay, compared to, if we go back here, we made 2,600 in profit here, or sorry, 3,800 in profit. So you see, it's like you've just made 6,000 extra in profit by spending 1,200 more. Okay, so you need to know your numbers, guys. That's why it's super important, because you guys are scared to spend more money because you don't know your numbers. If you knew your numbers, you would be throwing money at it, right? Think about it this way: if you give me $10 and I hand you back $50 every time, and you know that's guaranteed, and the reason you know is because you know your numbers, why would you not hand me more $10 bills, right? It's the same logic with performing ads. It's just you guys don't understand the maths of it, okay? So when you want to scale is if you have an ad running above 2% click-through rate, you have, for example, in cold traffic, below 20 cents cost per profile visit with a low frequency, less than 2, you are at the jackpot, right? You want to scale that ad. Look at your stats as well. What's your ROAS? Knowing your numbers removes the emotion from the decision, okay? So what each metric means: if your click-through rate is less than 1%, the hook and call to action are weak. If your click-through rate is really low, so less than 0.25%, the whole ad is pretty much dog shit, right? If you have a high frequency, it means that your ads are burning out and you need new creatives, okay? If you have a less than 5x return on ad spend, which is bad, but you have a high click-through rate, so like 2% click-through rate, which is good, and a low cost per profile visit or cost per lead, which is good, there's something wrong in your sales system. This is why it's important to know your numbers. If your ads are doing really well on paper, but you have a 5x return on ad spend, it means that one of these in red is wrong. It's probably the quality of your conversations, the quality of your replies, the quality of your consultations you're having, right? And don't say it's unserious clients. There's always room to improve in your sales process, which I'm going to teach you in depth in the next part, okay? And then if you have a 10x return on ad spend or above, you need to spend more money, you dumbass, okay? And I told you that example, all right? The issue is you guys just don't understand the maths right now, which is fine. That's why you're watching this video, all right? So an easy optimizing schedule for your cold ads, right? This is not your retargeting ads, but your cold ads, whether it's short-term or long-term. Week 1 is you're going to launch them with the 5, right? You're going to let it run. You're not going to touch anything for the first 7 days until you spent like $200, okay? Then that is because Meta is learning who your audience is, right? Week 2 then is where you're going to review and clean up. Okay, you're going to open up the ads manager. You're going to sort by the click-through rate and cost per profile visitor, cost per lead, right? How you're going to do that is performance and clicks. So if I open up this ad here, you're going to go columns, performance and clicks. For most of you, it's going to be on default on performance, so just do that, okay? And then you'll see everything here, right? If we scroll across, you'll see here the click-through rate, the link click-through rate here. You'll see and then the results, cost per result, frequency, everything here, okay? Continuing on. Then you're going to turn off the bottom 3 of the creative, so the ones that are performing the lowest, And then if you have clear 1 or 2 winners emerging, you're going to duplicate them into a new ad set, and you're going to raise the budget by 25% on that ad set. Okay. Now, once again, this is only if you're hitting these numbers, right? Once again here, right? Which I'll get into. Okay. Just because these two are better than these three doesn't mean they're technically good either. Okay, which I'll explain. All right. So week 3, evaluate scaling ad set. Let the new winner ad set run for 3 days. Okay. So let's say you've scaled this, let it run for 3 days. If it holds steady, turn the original off. If it doesn't hold steady and it doesn't do as well as the original one, you can turn the new winner off and revert to the original. Okay. And then you can even try scaling the original by 25% if you really want to spend more money, right? Once again, I recommend not touching it. Or even better, you can use the 25% extra budget you wanted to put on the winners to test out 5 new creatives against the current winners, right? If it's not letting you scale it, okay? And then week 4 to 6 is the maintenance phase, right? You monitor every 3 days, you just check it out, see that there's no major fuck-ups, right? The ads have popped, whatever reason, or the results have like significantly dropped in the last 14 days. Don't touch thriving ads, only touch to duplicate and scale by another 25%, right? Keep the frequency under 3. And for most of you, with the amount you're spending, it's probably always going to be under 3 for a while anyway, for months. And then throughout this phase, start planning new creatives for the next test cycle, right? Test cycle. So here is where you're making content as well. And the best performing content is always going to become the best performing ad as well, all right? And then a side note here, if your current winners, quote unquote, are still performing badly, right? So what I mean by that is you've done a test of 5. There were 2 that were better than these 3, but they still have terrible results. Then it doesn't. Then you need to test. You need to go back to the start again. You need to test 5 new creatives and fix the hook or call to action of the current winners. Right. Point being is, just because these 2 ads in the ad set did better than these 3 doesn't mean they're technically doing well, right? If their click-through rate is still below 1% and their results are not that, the results are still expensive, what you want to do is you want to fix their click-through rate. So you want to change the hooks to the first 3 seconds of the video and change the call to action to make it clearer. So like click send message or DM me, whatever. The whole point is you're really looking, before you scale, you're looking for, I'll actually come down here. Yeah, exactly. You only start scaling and not testing anymore when you have the following: 1.5% click-through rate. The cost per profile visit on that same ad is as low as it's ever been. And then you have at least a 5x return on ad spend on your results of your ads, right? Okay, and that's when you can start to scale a lot, because you don't want to scale a shitty ad, right? Just because you've made 5 different tests doesn't mean one of them is going to be good, right? And for the most part, if you follow the part of the creatives course in this paid ads course on how to make them, you have a high chance of that happening straight away. But just remember too, okay? Just because 2 ads are doing better than the other 3 doesn't always mean that they are performing well in the grand scheme of things, referenced by baseline metrics to hit, right? Baseline metrics being in this document, okay? So let me show you a couple more examples. Let me get rid of this one, right? Let me show you an example of an ad that's actually running right now, which is a short-term ad again, but it follows the same philosophy as the cold traffic, that I've on purpose actually let run longer than it should, in terms of without any improvements or optimizations, just for the purpose of this video. Okay, so this is an ad that's running 20 miles in New York. You can see that we've spent $400 in the last 30 days. Yeah, just what the client can afford right now. But anyway, you can see the cost per message is $7.57. Now, if we look at the ad sets, right? Sorry, if we look at the ads on this, you'll see that we have 3 videos that are running. Okay, the reason we've only made 3 is because, we've done this, enough times to kind of shorten the time frame. But for you, I'd still recommend making 5. Okay, but with these 3 videos, you can see the cost per message in the last 30 days for this one is 7. This one is also around 7, and this one is 11. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn this one off, right? Because the results are way more expensive. Okay. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the click-through rate. All right. So you can see that click-through rate was 0.57. So really, really low for this one. This one's 0.9 and this one's 0.67. So the next thing I'm going to do is not actually scale these ads, because they're not performing as well as I'd want them to, right? Because think about it this way. If the click-through rate was 2%, right, which would be nearly over double what it is now, we would get twice as many messages. Okay, so the cost per message would be $3.50, which it can be. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to these creatives and I'm going to fix the hook. I'm going to look at the middle and I'm going to fix the call to action. I'm going to make it clear, because if the click-through rate is only 0.9, it's that the ads are not clear enough. Okay, and I know what these ads are. They're kind of it's a very abstract artist, so we made some abstract ads to see if that will capture attention. And it obviously is, but it's still not clear enough, right? So we have to add a little bit more clarity to that too. We can't make it too abstract. So what we're going to do is, I've watched the hooks, for example, and the first 3 seconds, it takes a while to show any tattoo. So I'm going to cut that right down so that within the first second, there's tattoos shown. And then on the call to action, we're going to make it clear, and we'll have an arrow pointing to the button on the screen on where they need to click. Okay. And that will hopefully get the click-through rate up to at least 1.5. Then we can relaunch it. And then if the cost per message goes down to like 5 or 4, then we'll scale them. Okay. So let's just say for the point of this video, let's just say that the click-through rates here were really good. They were like above 2%. Okay. Well, this would be ready to scale. So what I would do is I would go here to open targeting. Okay. I would duplicate here, duplicate with original setup. And then once again, I'm going to edit the budget. So right, let's raise this to like, let's raise this to 30. Okay. And then I'm going to rename this, right? Winners. So I know. And then I'm going to get rid of video 1 because that was the video that wasn't performing well. Okay. And now I'd launch that. Okay. I'm not going to launch it, but I would review and publish it. And then once again, I'd wait a couple of days. So if I'm spending $30 total, I'm going to wait, let's say $150. I'm going to wait 5 days. And then after 5 days, I'm either going to turn this original one off because this $30 a day is performing better. Okay. Or I'm going to turn this one off because it's not performing. And at least we still have this winner one. Okay. Once again, I'm not going to scale these right now because they're not performing as well as I want them to. The click-through rate is not high enough yet. Okay. So we're going to make the changes in the video first, then relaunch them. Then once the click-through rate is above 1.5, then I'll think about scaling. Okay. All right. So that's an example of how you can optimize and scale a short-term ad. And then I'll just show you an example of one of my own ads that I was running before. So you can see here, this is what an actual cold traffic ad, so visit profile, looks like. So you can see the difference is, instead of it saying like cost per message being like $7, it says cost per Instagram profile visit, right? So this one's 39 cents, this one's 38 cents, okay? And it would be the same thing. Let's say I'd have 5 ads here, I turn 3 off. If these are doing really well, like what's the click-through rate on these? 2.26% and 1.99. Amazing. They're really good. So what I do is I would scale them. So I'd go back to the ad set that it's in, which is, I think, whatever. Yeah, this one, right? I would duplicate it again. Then I would rename it winners. And then I would raise the budget by 25%. So I'd probably raise this one to €70, for example. Okay. And that's just to show you that's the difference in the viewing of a short-term DM ad and a cold traffic to profile ad. It's just the result here. Okay. Same principle applies though. What's the link click-through rate? Okay. What is my results? Is it the lowest it's ever been? And is the click-through rate really, really high, which is good? Then I'm ready to scale this. Okay. And I never want to scale too fast, like, triple the budget, double the budget. If you're spending $20 a day, spend 30. If you're spending $40 a day, spend 50. If you're spending $50 a day, spend 70, whatever. Okay. If you're spending $10 a day, spend 15, whatever. Okay. And over time you can scale more and more. You just, when you double the budget or triple the budget too fast, sometimes it goes back into like learning mode and it takes too long. Okay. So going back here, when it comes to retargeting ads then, okay, you do not scale retargeting ads early. So if I show you an example of a retargeting ad, you can see here, once again, the whole goal, if you remember from a retargeting ad, is to run it at a low budget every day, like $5 or $10 max, and to consistently be making content and improving your cold ad results so that you can consistently keep getting high quality messages every day. So you can see, for example, this one, in the last 30 days, we spent $300. We haven't touched it. We've gotten 70 messages, $4 per message, right? So that's, 2 to 3 messages per day of high quality people booking in for only $300, right? Because they've gone through the natural process of the funnel, right? They've seen a cold ad, then they've gone onto the Instagram page, and then they've watched the content, and now they're seeing the retargeting ad. These people don't have a cold ad on right now because they don't need it. Their content is good. So anyway, the main thing is you can see if I actually go to maximum, since we started this retargeting ad with them, it's the same, right? We've spent $1,200. The cost per result is $4.38. So they're just, happily getting 2 to 3 messages every single day from high quality inquiries, because it's a retargeting ad, right? You might see here the frequency is 4. So if that was, if it was recently 4, I would probably turn it off. But you can see here in the last 30 days, the frequency is only 2.63. So we're fine, okay? Because their content is still growing their profile. But that's just how a retargeting ad looks. And the only time, if we go back here, the only time you want to scale your retargeting ads or make any change is if like your account's reach is doubling. So if you remember, when you go on Instagram and you go to the profile dashboard and you go to followers accounts reached or whatever it is, views accounts reached, you see the amount of accounts that are in your retargeting audience, right? When that doubles, that means you can double the amount of spend you're spending on a retargeting ad without having any effect, right? So for example, I would start with $5 a day, especially if your accounts reach is only around 50,000. Then let's say your accounts reach gets to 100,000. Then you could spend $10 a day on a retargeting ad, right? But there's no rush on this, okay? So you can consistently scale cold traffic and create more content to bring more people into your retargeting audience, right? So that your retargeting audience frequency never raises too high. As you saw there on the previous ad I just showed you, the frequency was 4 on average all time, but now it's at 2.63 because their content is growing their audience. The frequency is actually going down, even though we're spending the same, right? So the main thing is the more content you make and the better your cold traffic results are, right? So the cheaper it is for someone to visit your profile, the lower the frequency goes, right? Because your retargeting audience keeps growing, okay? Because remember, if your retargeting audience is growing at 5 times the rate it was, that means your frequency is shrinking at 5 times the rate, okay? So then you can consistently get new warm inquiries with the same $5 to $10 per day, right? So the whole point is you could put it at $10 per day, and then what you could do is to never have to touch that retargeting ad and to never worry about it being burnt out or to never worry about people getting used to it. You're just consistently growing your audience through cold traffic and through content, okay? And then once again, never double your budget overnight on the same ad set. Meta will reset your. Okay. Oh, I'm back. Amazing. So once you have 2 to 3 creatives with consistent running results at scale for 3+ weeks, you've hit the jackpot, right? Keep them running 24/7. Only test new ones when performance dips, right, significantly, or the frequency is greater than 3, right? Especially with the cold traffic, it's just going to be your best, newest reels, okay? And then this becomes your always on cold system, right? The whole point is we want to get to a point where you've done like 2 or 3 tests. You have the winners of the winners, right? So you've done 15 tests or 15 creatives. 3 of them are performing extremely well. They're all in the same ad set together. And you're running that at a high budget every day, and it's consistently getting you profile visits and bookings, right? That's the whole point. I'll show you 2 examples of clients of mine now that have been running their cold traffic ad to profile visits for a ridiculously long amount of time without touching any of it, okay? So tattoo artists fail when they panic after 2 days and turn everything off. Judge ads emotionally, right? I think this one feels better, right? We do not dictate what the best performing ad is. The audience does, okay? And then you keep changing things mid-learning. Oh, if I see a typo, I'll really quickly change this. Or, oh, I'm not sure, maybe I'll spend less if this didn't do so well. You just need to remove yourself from it, okay? If you're going to run ads, this is really important. If you're going to run ads, commit to 30 days, testing at least 5 creatives and spending at least $900, okay? Now, this is specifically for the long-term strategy. If you're short-term and you really need bookings, at least 500, right? But anything less, you're not testing, right? You're just gambling emotionally. This is really important for you to understand, okay? Most of you guys, when you're running ads, you're literally just gambling, okay? And that is why you never win, because you're betting against the house wizard's meta and you don't even know what game you're playing, right? So you need to treat it like you're a robot, right? As I say here, you have to treat ads like a robot. like a robot would, like an AI would, right? Emotionless, purely making decisions based on the data they see and the prompts it was given, right? So imagine you were an AI, or imagine you were a robot that's about to run ads, right? The prompt I would give you is, you're a tattoo artist who's going to spend $900 in the next 30 days on a cold traffic ad, $20, $5 per day, and a retargeting ad, $5, and will not turn off the ads for any reason. You will commit to doing tests and tracking data for 30 days, regardless of the results, right? That would be the prompt. What would the AI do? It would go, it would test, it would do all these things, and it wouldn't care if it got no results, okay? The issue is you guys are getting too emotional too quickly, and then you're never learning, and you're just through this cycle of run ads for a week, doesn't work. Run ads for a week, doesn't work. It takes weeks and months to figure out what works, right? But the whole point is, when you do eventually figure it out, you've literally hit the jackpot for a long, long time, which I'm going to show you, okay? So this is the only way you'll get any beneficial data for you to improve your ads over time. If you follow this system, as well as my previous video on conversion mechanisms, so how to organically get new conversations going with clients, and the sales training I'm going to teach you next, right? I can almost guarantee that you'll get one client in those first 30 days that pays back for your advertising spend, okay? Put my reputation on the line here. If you run the ads properly, you remove your emotion, and you do as I've told you to do here, you also are using the conversion mechanisms like the stories, the automated DM to the new followers, and then you're also following the sales processes that I'm going to teach you next, it's almost guaranteed you get one client, right? So just know that as well, okay? As much as you think you're taking a huge risk, you have to take the risks, okay? So why do we duplicate the winners into one ad set? I've gotten this question a couple of times, right? There's three reasons, right? Number one is to combine momentum, right? When you duplicate your top 2 to 3 winning creatives, so your videos, into one ad set, you're combining your strongest performing signals under one learning phase, okay? So Meta's algorithm doesn't learn per ad, it learns per ad and ad set level, okay? So imagine you have 3 winners, but they're all in a different ad set. It's learning 3 times as slow because there's only $10 budget here, $10, you see what I mean? So when you duplicate all the winners and you keep putting all the winners together, once that starts performing all together, it's like you're spending all your money on the winners, and Meta's learning really quickly, okay? So by merging winners, you give the algorithm more consistent, high quality engagement signals, which makes it optimize faster and more efficiently. Basically, instead of 3 ad sets each spending $10 a day learning separately, you now have one ad set spending $30 a day with all the winners learning faster, okay? And number 2 is it makes scaling easier, right? It makes it cleaner. If you have 2 to 3 ad sets all doing okay, so you have 2 or 3 ad sets with one winner in each one, it's hard to scale the budget efficiently, right? Because if one's spending 10, one's spending 10, one's spending 10, you want to raise the budget, you're like, okay, I'll spend 12.5 here, 12, it's really hard, okay? So when you put all the winner creatives into one ad set, you can say, oh, let's go from spending $30 total, across 3 to 40 on one, okay? And this duplication makes it smoother, not just tidier, right? And then the other thing is you protect the originals. When you duplicate, you don't edit the originals. Remember, if the super ad set, like the winner ad set, doesn't work, at least you can turn it off and you still have the originals running. All right. So once again, the other thing as well is you want to know what the results were when you were spending $20 a day compared to $40 a day and so on. Okay. If you edit the same ad set, you lose that data, as you can't see that ad set used to spend $20 a day, right? For example, if I go here to the ad, if I was to go to this ad that is spending $50 a day and edit it directly here, and then change it to like 70, I'd never know that used to spend 50. So the data would be skewed, right? And the reason this is important is because you want to find your sweet spot, right? You'll see here, you'll get to a point where you scale up and the results will drop down. So you want to find the sweet spot of where you can spend the most amount possible in one day without results diminishing, okay? For example, let's say you start this whole thing off, you spend $20 a day with your first ad set, you get great results. So then after a while, you duplicate it and you spend $30 a day on this first scaled ad set, right? It's still great results. So then you duplicate it and scale it again to $40 a day. Still great results. Then you duplicate it and scale it to 50, and then the results go to shit. And then maybe you duplicate it and scale it to 50 again to try again, still goes to shit. Well, then okay, $40 a day is my sweet spot, right? It's the most amount of money I can spend while still getting the same great results as when I was spending $20 a day, okay? Because when I spend $50 a day, the results drop, which means that my return on ad spend, or my return on the ads in general, is the same as if I was just spending 30 or 20, right? So the whole point is, the reason you want to duplicate it every time you make a change is because you don't want to lose that data. You want to know, oh, well, when I was spending $20 a day, it was amazing. And then somewhere here, I lost it. Well, let me check all of these ad sets. Okay. And then once again, don't look at the results by the day, because this is how you're going to pull your hair out. Look at them by the 2-week period. Okay. If you think about the stock market, if you looked at the stock market every single day, you'd have a heart attack, right? But if you look at the stock market over a year, or you look at Bitcoin over a year, it's like it gradually goes up or gradually goes down, right? It's the same with your ads. It's like some days you'll get 10 messages, some days you'll get 0. There will be a week in a row where you might get 0, okay? And then there might be a week in a row where you get a ridiculous amount, okay? The whole point is you need to look at it on a longer time period. And most of you guys are running it for 3 days, panicking, and then turning it off, and then repeating that forever, okay? And then also, this is really important. Don't edit an ad or don't make changes on your ads just because it's been so long since you made a change. The whole point is to get to this point, right? The whole point is to get to this result where you have ads running that consistently get you great results and clients every day, and you don't even have to touch them for months, right? So I'm going to show you 2 examples with real clients of mine that are experiencing this right now. First, I have a client, Ari, she's based in New York, and she's been running ads with me for the last 5 months, okay? And in the last 3 months, we have changed nothing, and the results are still getting lower, okay? I'm going to show you a clip. It's the same. It's pretty much the same. Let's have a look at, because I know that we did a couple of changes, open targeting, new creative test. Okay. Which ones are these? Right. So, wow, these got no. Okay, interesting. Honestly, Ari, like, life is good right now, no? Do anything, you're getting loads of messages. I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna say the same thing as last month. You know, let it ride for another, we can check it again in 2 weeks or month. Yeah. Because like the other thing as well is, yeah, of course we can try some new tattoos and maybe one works, but you know, you have more important things to do. You know, the only thing that matters is that you're getting enough inquiries to book and you're growing, you know, because like, look, the cost per result here is 13 cents for someone to visit your profile, for example, right? We could, if we did crazy marketing, if we tried all these different things, we could maybe get it down to 10 cents. It's just not worth the time, you know? The reason you do ads and stuff in the first place, to not worry about finding new clients, so you can just focus on your art and also on you know, on social media content. What I would say to you, Ari, is, as I said, look, you can see this is the last 30 days. The last time we spoke was like November. If we go to November, you can see that the results have actually improved. The only reason I would change any of the ads with you is if the results were worse, you know? But the results are actually better. Like you can see, look, this was October. See the way it's going down and down and down. The point is, if you remember, I said like there's so many people in New York. There's, you know, 8 million or whatever. What's happening is new people are seeing your ad all the time, and loads of people are really liking your tattoos. So the ad, usually what happens is the ad burns out, meaning that people get sick of it, but it's still going to new people. Because if I go to performance and clicks, for example, here, there's something what's called the frequency. The frequency is how much on average someone has seen your ad. So on average, someone has seen your ad once, nothing, right? But my point is, like, some people in New York have seen it 3 times, and then other people have seen it 0 times, you know? The only time you want to change an ad is if the results are getting worse, frequency is getting so high, the results are going to get worse. Because if this frequency is at like 4, that people are going to start getting sick of it, and then you can anticipate the results going to go down. But the thing is, remember, Ari, we're like, in the grand scheme of things, compared to every other advertiser, we're spending nothing, you know? Like, we're spending $45 a day, which is like whatever, $1,500 a month, more or less. You know, there's people that spend 30,000 a day in New York. You know, it's like, we're spending pennies. So I'm also bad for this, where it's like, you always want to just like do something, change something. You feel like if you're not doing anything, then you're not doing enough. But the whole point of ads is to get to this point, you know, to get to a point where you find ads that work, that run on their own, that you don't have to worry about, that you check every now and then, that consistently get you inquiries. You know, that's the whole point. Yeah, if you had to change your ads every single day, no one would do it, because it would be so much energy, you know? So
Yeah.
it takes time, attention,
Yeah.
effort, you know. My point being is, like, in the last 30 days, as we've seen, the results are 13 and 17. In
Oh,
November, they were 17, 24, and in October, they were 24, 27. So it's going down, you know, it's actually improving. So the
in
main thing
fact,
is you don't have to be the best marketer in the world, right? You just have to be good enough to get the results you want. And that's what's happening now, you know? So if you're very happy with your clientele, with your inquiries, with your life in general, I would focus this extra attention you have on other things, on your art, on making more organic content. Because the next step up for you now, Ari, is getting booked out all the time without needing any ads. Then there is another example, Edvin. So me and Edvin started working on his ads in December 2024. Okay, so a year and a bit ago. His results were very low. He had a click-through rate of 0.25. We went through his creatives and I explained what he needed to change in his creative. So what we changed was basically he does very cool abstract art. The issue was his ads, kind of like the ads I just showed you or the ad set I just showed you in this video. We went with the abstract creative, but we didn't have a clear messaging at the start and at the end as well, though, right? So we can still have a really cool abstract video, but it still has to be very clear. So the issue with Edvin is he's so well known in the abstract world that pretty much everyone who knows that abstract art exists, if that his type of style exists, knows he exists. So we wanted to scale his cold ads to new people, and the issue was that most because the ad wasn't kind of talking about what he did and it was going straight into like abstract work. If people didn't know what abstract work was, it kind of never showed up on their feed. So instead, we needed to grow the circle of people who knew what abstract work is. Okay. So I asked Edvin, like, out of all of your favorite clients, what was the biggest commonality that they mentioned on why they chose you and how they came across you? And he said most of them say, I've always wanted a tattoo for years, but I never saw something that like spoke to me until I saw your type of abstract work. And then I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. So I said, okay, well, how can we find and attract more people who are thinking the same in our ads? So then at the start of our ad, we said, do you want a tattoo but haven't found anything you like, right? Or do you want a tattoo but haven't seen anything that speaks to you? That's the hook that's going to capture these people who really, really want a tattoo, like Edvin's clients, but don't know abstract exists. We made those changes. We got a clear call to action: click visit profile, or click send message below. It's a cold traffic, so click visit profile to check out more of my abstract work and interviews with clients, right? And the results of those changes, as you can see, he made those changes and launched a new test batch in 2025. And the click rate on those ads, it's the same ad, just with a better hook and call to action, was 8%, right? Which is a 40x improvement, which is crazy. It means 40 times as many people were visiting his profile for the same amount of money, okay? So I'm going to show you a clip from our call now where Edvin shows me the results and I explain what to do next.
Like we said, I think I'll do a copy of this one and just run it at a higher budget and see.
Yeah.
So this one here is the new one, that is Europe. I forgot to rename it. But as you can see, it's I put it at $20 instead of 15, and it's working really well already. See if I can translate so you can see.
That's
yeah, like,
crazy.
yeah, it's like the CTR is already this high also, and now this one is almost up to 9%, the US one.
Well, I don't
Pretty
know
wild.
what's done.
I don't know either, but it's good.
Yeah, look at your CPM as well. It's only costing you $3 to be shown in Europe to 1,000 people.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And this one already has more link clicks.
Yeah, it's because your CPM is so low.
Mm.
Because you get 3 times as many views for the same amount of money.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Crazy. But that's just because there's so many more advertisers in the US.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why. Obviously, the more advertisers there are, the more expensive it is because it's an auction, right? Like you're basically bidding to show up on someone's feed. But just scroll over to the ends again. CTR, rate, CPC. Yeah, that's great. Again, like what you need to realize is some people only dream of getting to this after like 6-8 months. So
Yeah.
don't feel like you have to test this particular ad so much. Right? You might have just honestly by complete chance hit the perfect nail on the head. You know what I mean? But I would still duplicate. I would try to scale the budget as much as I possibly can, without losing. Remember, keep both of these on just in case.
Yes.
And yeah, I would double the ads. Well, I would probably go up from 20 to. I would honestly just go for it. I would double the ad spend on both. See what happens.
Yeah.
You know, and then you could turn the other ones off. And I would just ride that wave. As I said, focus on social media content. Focus on getting clients now because you're getting inquiries, you're getting follows, you're getting attraction.
Yeah.
You turn that attraction, as you're saying, with the email. So yeah, okay. And he actually messaged me just last week. You can see it's the 12th of February today, 2026. He messaged me on the 28th of Jan saying that he's still running the exact same ad set to this day over a year later and hasn't touched it, as it's still consistently getting amazing results on clients, right? As you can see, man, I'm seriously running the exact same ad that showed you years ago. It's still performing well, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the most important thing, right, guys? Okay. The whole point is you're trying to get to the position that Ari and Edwin are in right now, which is you have an ad running that has consistently performed for months. You haven't touched, you don't need to touch because you've hit that sweet spot. And you can focus your attention, like I mentioned to Ari, on other important things like your art, your brand, etc. All right. So once again, optimizing, retargeting ads, we've kind of gone through this. You're only going to change a retargeting ad if the frequency gets way too high. But if your frequency gets too high, it's probably because your retargeting audience isn't growing fast enough, which means that your content's not performing well enough or your cold ad's not performing well enough. So if that's happening and your frequency is rising above 4 really quick, it's probably too early for you to run a retargeting ad, right? Your audience is still too small. So just stick to the cold ad, keep making content, and then come back to the retargeting ad in a couple of weeks, okay? This video has gone on long enough, so I'm going to kind of skip through all of this here. The main thing is with the retargeting ad, if you scale too fast, remember, the retargeting ad is only running to people who know you exist, right? Who are in your retargeting audience. So if you spend $50 a day, it's going to hit all of those people in a day. And then by day 2, by day 3, everyone has seen the ad 3 times, right? So you have to run the retargeting ad at a low budget, but it's great because it means you'll get 2 to 3 messages consistently of people who are at a high quality, right? In terms of their interest, okay? So the end of this video is just a final reminder on the power of knowing your numbers, okay? Just going back here again, right? If we know our numbers, okay, let's say we spent $1,000, okay, we got 50 leads, 40 messages, 35 replies, 10 consults booked, 6 shows, 3 new clients, and we made, let's say each client is worth 1,500, so we made 4,500, all right? Right now we have a ROAS of 3.5, okay? Our cost per acquisition is 333, which is not great, okay? But making simple changes here can improve things significantly, okay? Okay, so for example, let's say our click-through rate is 20%. And let's say we get that up to 1%. We make quick changes on our ads and we 5x that, right? So then we get 500 clicks for the same amount of money, okay? Now our click-through rate is 1%. So then we get 5 times as many leads, for example, to be conservative, because things usually go down the more you spend, or the more you change. So let's say you got 200 leads, it says on the ad, so cost per lead of 5, and then you actually see 180 that come in, right? That's just the disparity, all right? Then out of those 180, let's say 100 of them reply, okay? Out of 100 of them who reply, let's say you book 20 of them in for a consultation. Let's say out of those 20 consultations that you book 10 of them show up, okay? And then out of the 10 people that show up, let's say you book in 4 clients, for example, all right? And then let's say each client is worth 1,500, which would be 6,000, okay? So you can see here that just by simply changing the click-through rate, so just by simply making a change in the ad, we've changed nothing else, right? We've just increased our return on ad spend to 5, okay? Which is crazy, right? Now, there's so much more we can improve. So for example, now, let's look at the next thing. Okay, well, look, our reply rate is 55%. That's really low. What's happening? Oh, well, I have been only replying after like 2, 3, 4 hours. Okay, I'm going to set up a system where I can consistently reply to people within 2 hours. Okay, so if I'm working, I check it at the start of the day, middle of the day, end of the day, for example, whatever, right? And let's say because of your speed to replying now that you've improved, which is, by the way, one of the most important things you can do, you get your replies to, let's say, 150. Okay, so now your reply rate is 83%. So you've got 50 more replies. So now out of those 50 more replies, let's say you book 5 more of them in for a consultation, right? And then you have, 5 more people that show, and then you book in 2 more clients. So that would be 6. Okay. So then you've now made 9,000. Okay. So simply by just, if you remember, originally the total sales was 4,500, right? Now by simply just fixing the video in the ad, right, which takes 2 seconds, then by simply replying faster, okay, we have just made double our money, right? Easy. Okay. So now let's keep going, and our ROAS is now 8. Okay. So we could even double our ad spend, but let's continue. Let's improve the next thing. Okay, so now our booking rate is 17%. Right, what's going on there? Well, the quality of our conversations aren't great. Okay, I'm replying fast, but I'm not replying fast after that. Okay, I've gone through Oisin's sales process now and sales course, and I've taken what I like and I've implemented it into my way of talking to people, and that's increased. It helped me improve my booking rate to 33%. Right, so it's gone from 17 to 33. Okay, which is very doable. So now I've booked in 50 consults, which means I've booked in double the amount of consults, right? So double the amount of shows, which means double the amount of clients, right? Remember, if nothing else changes, which means double the amount of money. Okay, so now by simply following the sales process and replying faster consistently, I've now made 18,000. Okay, so now we're at a 17 ROAS. All right, and now let's look again. Okay, well, my show rate is 60%. That's okay, but let's say I didn't have any reminders, and then I added some reminders in, and then instead of 60%, it goes up to 80 because some people just forgot, right? And then out of those 10 new people, I got 3 new clients, which is 15. And then 15 by 1.5 is 15. It's 22.5, right? So now by simply just adding reminders to my sales process, I've now increased my booking rate, increased my show rate, and therefore the amount of sales. So now I'm at a 21 return on ad spend. Okay, remember, I've not spent any more money. I've just changed these little things over time because I know what I need to change. Okay, and now my close rate is 38%, which is great, which is fine. Okay, out of 40 consultations, I'm booking 15 people in. That's fine. Okay, then you'll go through the whole sales process, and then in a couple of months you might get that up to 50%, which is great. But this is the last thing, right? It's a huge skill in itself to be good at sales and communication, etc. But we fixed the easiest things. So now we're at a 21x ROAS. Okay, so anyone in their right mind who obviously has time is now going to just double their budget, right? So now let's say we spend $2,000. Okay, and once again, when you scale, the ROAS goes down. So we're not going to get 15 clients again from the next 1,000, but let's say we get 8 clients instead of 15 from the next 1,000. Okay, then we have 23 clients. Okay, which means we've made 34,500 here. Okay, so now you can see the ROAS has gone down, but we've still made way more profit. Okay, and then over time you could even go crazy, and let's say we double that again to 4,000, and then the next time this goes way down. So now we only have 35 clients. Okay, which is 52,500. You can see we got way less. So we went from, if we go back here, we went from 23 clients to 35, right? So from the first 2,000 we spent, we got 23 clients. Then from the second 2,000 we spent, we only got 12 new clients, right? So we're getting less than half the amount of clients we got from our first 2,000. Yet, when you look at the numbers, right, we're still making way more profit, right? So just because your ROAS goes way down doesn't mean you're not making more profit. That's why it's really important to know your numbers. So by simply knowing your numbers, you can change something that's easily fixable. And then once you see, okay, I've got really good numbers everywhere, solid numbers, you can just double the amount of money you're spending with extreme confidence. And that's how you can use ads to book yourself out. Okay. And that's how you track and optimize everything. All right. In the next part of the course now, we're going to go in depth on sales, persuasion, and communication, how you can turn all of these leads, all of these ad leads, all of these organic leads into actual paying clients. So you can start filling out this piece in red here. Okay. And then also talk about how you can use this part of the tracking sheet and the FAQ sheet there as well. So we can really understand where our best clients are coming from, how much we need to spend, what we need to change, etc. All right. So next we're going to talk in depth about sales and community. Okay, I hope you found that paid ads masterclass helpful. So once again, in the workbook, you have homework and a checklist of everything you need, right? When you're setting up your ads manager, there's a checklist. When you're setting up your ad campaign, there's a checklist. When you're optimizing your campaigns, there's a checklist. You can also download and make a copy of the booking tracking sheet that I showed you that you can fill out as well. Okay. And now in the final part of this full course, we're going to talk about how you can master the skill of client communication and sales.